basically still be flexible to come back and forth in size. But some people that eat a lot, like the obesity challenges, their stomachs get stretched and they don't go back to the size that's normal, which is about 8 ounces worth.
Okay, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
What you guys are
Tyler, we are
also
5
failing
minutes
to
past the
remember.
top of the hour.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready?
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay, where's the air horn? There it goes. So then first story is that our friend Nick Clegg over at Facebook says Facebook will release 2 internal slide decks central to the Wall Street Journal story on Instagram impact on teens to the public in the next few days, after they edit them a little bit, you know what I mean? But maybe they won't edit it. And this, we knew this because Casey Newton, when the whole, here's what happened. Wall Street Journal got in touch with somebody that's angry at Facebook, internal, who's leaking stuff. They wrote 6 stories called the Facebook Files. One of those stories was the claim that Facebook had this deck, and on the deck there was a slide, and the slide says basically that Instagram's aware of the fact that it's, some 30% of young ladies who use Instagram, that they feel Instagram makes it worse in relation to their body self-image. That Instagram makes their image of themselves worse. And so the Wall Street Journal did that headline. That was last week. Then they had other headlines, and then Facebook came around over the weekend and yesterday saying, well, you cherry picked the data. Here's the slide that you cherry picked the data from. And on that slide, there's 12 data points where we asked young women and young men how Instagram may helps or hurts their, improves, or it makes them better or worse on many different topics. And on the topic of body image, yes, young ladies, 30% of them says it makes it worse. For other things like family stress, financial stress, all kinds of other issues, Instagram, they report, actually makes them feel better about themselves. And so we're calling you out, Wall Street Journal. Why are you picking on the one data point in a slide full of actually 24 data points, 12 for the young boys, 12 for the young girls? The young boys benefit from Instagram, according to the data. The young girls do too, 11 out of 12 data points. And you wrote the headline about the one data point without even mentioning the other 11 or the fact that boys, don't have any. So then there was a tweet from Casey Newton, who's a tech blogger, who says, well, hey, why don't you released the slide, and that's cool. Why not release the whole deck and let us as adults, see this deck? And somebody, Adam Stone, who works at Facebook, replied to Casey on Twitter and said, oh, we are sharing these decks with the congressional hearing that's happening this week and plan to share them shortly after that. So Casey did that on Twitter yesterday. Then Casey goes on his own blog today with the blog headline, wrote a blog post. Facebook should release the documents behind this Wall Street Journal Facebook Files, knowing that Facebook already told him that they are going to release them. Casey, what are you doing, Casey? That's kind of a punk move, dude. And so now Facebook writes their own blog post, kind of, we already did this in Twitter form with tweets, and now we're doing this in blog posting. And so now Facebook says we will release them, which we already knew. Casey already knew, but Casey felt like he had to get the clicks, little click thirst, a little thirsty for something.
And they probably did the cheesy liking their own post too, Tyler.
It's silly. This tech journalism 2021, late stage journalism, corporate journalism. Welcome to the end. Welcome to the end of journalism. We're now entering the age of a social chat, and everyone's going to have their own microphone and their own little podcasting studio and their own microphone and their own little vanity light, and everyone can go to whoever they want for their news. And corporate journalism that's run by corporations, nonetheless, have agendas. And their agenda is staying in business. And hype, and what keeps them in business is keeping people misinformed, unfortunately. Reporting the actual news is no longer a viable business model. So that's why we're left to do this on our own here in Tech News Around the World.
Tech News Around the World.
in a truly democratic fashion, where even anyone on stage can be called out on without notice at any time, and any of you in the audience can jump up on here and tell us we are wrong, and here's what's going on, and here's the receipts, and we figure it out as a group because we're genuinely curiously want to know what the hell's really going on. And that's why we're doing this, and that's why it seems to be working. So that's the first story of the day.
Okay,
it's the
Tyler,
new
before
morning
you move
drive,
on,
right?
can you check the hand raise, please?
I see Evan, I see Amanda, I see Carl, and somebody named Zola with some Disney princess eyes. Zola, are you using an app to auto-enhance those beautiful eyes, Zola? Let's be real. Zola,
are you there?
What's the name of the app you used, Zola?
Her name was Zola.
Zola, are you
Zola, Zola. Zola.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Real.
Awesome. I used Tune Me.
What is it called?
Tune Me.
Tune Me. Okay. And you tuned yourself.
I did.
How many times bigger for the eyes?
It's like about, my eyes are much more slender.
You know what's crazy is now which app is there's a new app that's doing this for video. Zoom, that's right. Zoom has new settings coming out where you can you can whiten your skin.
Makeup, you could put makeup on and it stays on and follows your face.
Right. It puts blush in your cheeks. You can increase your eye size. And one other interesting element, I forget what it was. Slender, make your face a little more slim or whatnot, make your cheekbones bigger, what have you. Anyway, but that's such a weird concept because we read headlines a few days ago about how plastic surgery has been booming during COVID because of Zoom, and that people are seeing themselves more in Zoom, and it doesn't look flattering, and so they want to go fix themselves up.
I tuned myself because there's some weird people on Clubhouse, and sometimes they would try to use your pictures to look for you. It's really strange behavior happening on Clubhouse. So that's why I tuned my face. It's kind of like my face, but it's not like my face.
Yeah.
And since I have the mic, I want to ask a really, really quick question.
Yeah.
I want to get into tech. And I just recently, I signed up for this cool academy type thing. It's called Unity. Unity, I think, Academy or something like that. Not Unity, sorry. Can't remember the name right now. But it's in data science. Is data science like a thriving industry for a few years?
Oh boy, it is.
It's hot.
Okay.
Oh boy, that's a good one to pick. Yeah. Did you hear that sound, Zola? Did you hear a little sound?
It's the highest paid new graduate job now.
Oh, Zola. Okay. The academy is called Entity Academy.
Okay.
I just want to know if it's a good direction to go in terms of the school, and they're doing like a program where you have to first be hired before you can pay back. So it's kind of like those things that they're doing right now.
I love this is the most clever pitch we've ever heard here.
No.
And welcome to our new sponsor, Entity Academy. Well done, Zola.
You're funny.
Zola, we can't say anything about the academy that you enroll in, but the data scientist is a hot
well, no,
role now.
I'll tell you what. I'm looking at the website here, Entity Academy, where women come to upskill. entity is closing the skills, confidence, and wage gaps that disproportionately impact women apply today. And one of the they have several categories: women in data science, women in software development, women in professional sales, women in digital marketing, product management, tech sales, UI UX design, and fintech. And I guess the part of the program is you don't pay, you have to apply, and then how does it work? It's well, here's the cost right here. Online programs, data science, $15,000. That's not cheap.
It's a certificate of recognized.
Hold on, but here's my question. After you, how does it work, Zola?
Not
you
tech news.
Yeah.
Get to the news, Tyler.
Yeah, but this if this is good, this could be.
Service,
I want to know if this is good or not, because if it is, then this is a very much needed thing in tech generally, and it's
later.
Yeah,
later.
Here's the question: do you pay up front, or you only pay once you're employed?
Once you're employed.
Oh, then I highly
that works.
I highly endorse this. That's fantastic.
I highly endorse this too. I'm a data scientist, and Harvard Business Review.
4 months, you wouldn't have to pay anything. I think it's
so Zola, you don't pay anything until you get hired as a data scientist, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's what they.
Good for you.
This is awesome.
There's an article that Harvard Business Review has done. There's an article that Harvard Business Review has done and said that the data science position is the sexiest profession of the 21st century.
Yeah, that we know. We already know about that. What we're wondering is if, and so we can answer that for you, Zola. Absolutely, do the data scientist thing. Matter of fact, all their programs, those are all really good areas. You really can't go.
They really are, Tyler. I'm taking a look at it now.
You really can't go wrong with any of those categories that they have. The question is it a scam or not? And so that's why, if you're not paying until you get the job, it depends.
That's all right.
Yeah, and you have to pay back $15,000 with maybe a little bit of interest. That ain't so bad. If you're getting $100,000 a year job and you can pay it back, it's more important than tech news. To be clear, Suzanne.
Books. Yeah, no, this is
no,
STEM
it's
news.
not.
It absolutely is.
I agree with that.
Tech desperately needs good solutions like this for women to onboard into tech.
This is called tech news around the world.
Yes.
This is not tech news, right? This is called tech news around the world. I've got a whopping 42 more minutes.
Yeah, that's okay.
I want tech news.
Then hang tight. Well, for sure, I guarantee you we will have some.
Okay,
can I just ask, is there like a threshold salary? So if you were being paid, say, $10,000 a year, would you still have to repay back the tuition? And this is not too dissimilar to the way the UK government gives loans to university students.
I was just thinking the same, Jonathan.
Whereby there is a minimum threshold salary before you're expected to pay back. Although, sadly, I see the government is going to adjust that downwards now.
Yeah, unfortunately, from 27,000 thresholds down to potentially 23, 22, 20,000 once you start having to pay back, which is very unfortunate.
Zola, so you have to read the fine print before you sign anything.
I'm going to read
the fine print. Is very important.
Okay, but this could be, some kind of affiliate sponsorship we could do. Because I would love to promote something like this if it's as good as I hope it is. Yeah.
Tyler, I think that when you start looking at all the news that we've been covering over the past few months regarding data science, software development, tech, AI, all these sectors that are underrepresented by women. So I think this is really something I'm reading the terms and conditions, right? Just kind of really just looking at some of the overview, skimming through it. But, from the perspective of tech news around the world, this is in essence the facilitation of being able to also solve the problems that you may have from the startups, from these new ventures that are coming out as well, because as these ventures pop up, you will in fact need talent as well. Yeah. And this is where those connections do come across really well. And I think it's a really strong place to sit, because you do have a lot of women that can and absolutely work in the space.
Right.
And the space is going to need a lot of people as we move very fast.
Yeah, and it needs people who can't afford to go to Stanford and whatnot. And it says income share agreements. With the income share agreement, you pay $0 for the program until you secure a job post-graduation. Payment only occurs when you're employed and earning above a predetermined minimum salary. Brilliant. The duration of the ISA and the income share percentage vary from program to program. That makes perfect sense. And as everyone says, it's the devil's in the details. I'm just, a little excited that hopefully it's as good as I think it is. So I want to take the time to, after the program, to find out the details. As we said, the devil in the details.
When we go through freestyling, I think it'd be nice. Could I ask that we go back to this and assess it? Because I think there's a lot here that could be very interesting, especially when you look at the graduate testimonials, which I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
Can we make a top-down view of it? And sorry, Suzanne, I respectfully disagree, but we're friends. This is so important. STEM is so important. STEM in general is important, but making sure that we provide tools for our future generation.
I'm all about STEM,
so important,
Chris. So
I have 2 daughters.
Don't say that I'm not about STEM.
No, I know you are. But that's why it relates to tech. It's, science, tech, electronics and manufacturing. So you can't have STEM without tech. And
the data science piece is particularly interesting because of developing, the data. You need women in the data space, or weird things start to happen.
Tyler, this is coming out of your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
this is coming out of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
she's a founder since 2016. So this is not a new fly by night. It's already been here since 2016, and she's created this, and she designed this program to accommodate students from across the world to create an extraordinary learning experience. And it's based, some of the programs are based all around Los Angeles. So to Chris's point, your point, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now let's put a pin in that one. We'll circle back to that. So the second biggest story of the day says Facebook defines its metaverse and plans to invest $50 million over 2 years in programs and external research to responsibly build the next computing platform. And this is, I have to assume, is a response to an article yesterday that says Facebook is a dystopian nightmare. And they made an argument for why Facebook's not to be trusted, and they gave the whole laundry list of egregious trust violations that Facebook's dabbled in over the years. And so why should we give them any benefits of any doubts going into this whole new chapter around the metaverse? And fair enough. So Facebook, I believe this is this is how you handle scenarios like that. I feel like in this PR battle, you have to be quick to respond with a stronger, more positive headline, like they just did. That here comes the metaverse. We want to work together to define it. We've got $50 million to set it up in the proper way. And because everyone's saying, oh, they're just going to rush into this as they always do and go fast and break things, and then we're going to find ourselves, living in concentration camps, virtual concentration camps in 5 years, or some crazy outcome we never anticipated. And now this is what you do if you want to be seen as a good actor. I kind of applaud what they're doing with this. And so Robert Scoble, who I would love to see a flash hands. Do you know who Robert Scoble is? Flash your mics if you know who Robert Scoble is. Heyman, Evan, HAT, and Suzanne and Tina. Okay. And Lakeisha. Okay. So Robert's really excited about VR, has been since back in the day. And he's an Apple geek. He's an OG geekster from the Valley and a bit of a tech blogger at times. And anyway, he says, and he's often a critic of Facebook, but he took to Twitter to say, this is a company with no Ted Lasso tries to distract everyone. This is nothing when Apple is spending $40 billion on the products coming in the next year. Okay. Trying to see other notable geeks that are tweeting in response about this. just to get the sentiment of the web. Here's one. Hassan Khan says, if I were responsible for fucking up the real world, I would think maybe I'd shut up and shut up about responsibility designing a new type of society or whatever. That's a strong take. There's a hot take. Building the metaverse responsibly is a real sentence in our real world that exists. And Nick Clegg himself from Facebook says the metaverse isn't a single product one company can build alone, and it won't be built overnight. This gives us time to ask the difficult questions about how it should be built and collaborate with policymakers, industry, and academia to guide our work. And I think that's brilliantly worded, by the way. And I think that he's benefiting from the fact that they had sort of a failed launch with their currency, the Diem. What did they originally call it? Libra. And then now they call it Diem, and they have the Novi wallet, and that got poo-pooed because people don't trust Facebook. And they found out, hey, Facebook, no one wants to play with your digital money because we don't trust you. You're a bunch of bad actors. So they're starting to get the gist that this metaverse thing that they're investing heavily in with Oculus, by the way, they've already got the hardware. They've got the kind of market head start. They got pole position. And they're at the starting line with Oculus. It's the race is just getting started, and they've got a really nice position in the lead of this race in the early days. They want to maintain that. They don't want to lose it. They don't want to screw it up. It's $1 trillion opportunity. It could get derailed due to all of their misgivings over like all of this Facebook file stuff that the Wall Street Journal's kicking off right now. That could derail their whole future as a metaverse company at a time when they really need everyone to buy into their metaverse vision. So I think they understand that it's super important to build the trust back. They must have, there must be a meeting today at Facebook, multiple meetings with multiple slide decks, brainstorming about how do we earn people's trust back, because if we don't, even if we have the best tech, and even if we have the best hardware with Oculus and the best software and experience, if people don't trust it, they won't use it. We're out. We're 86th. So that's my take. I predict they're going to come out strong with a focused effort on earning people's trust, because I think the alarm bells have gone off inside of Facebook, and they realize that people don't trust them. And so they need to
more than ever now with the RayBan smart glasses and also like the Oculus VR advertisement that went like haywire. It just adds to the pile.
What happened with the glasses? I thought so far, has there been a hiccup yet with that?
No hiccups yet, but you never know. Like the press might view it in a wrong way or like have misperceptions of.
Well, I think people are eager to jump and pounce on Facebook if there's any kind of opportunity to. And with these glasses, so far I don't really see it, and that's kind of good for them. The longer they can go without a big dog pile and getting knocked out, then they could sustain and eventually turn the whole tide. And let's see. It's going to be interesting to watch Facebook try and do the metaverse and their digital wallet in this landscape where in the post Facebook files, Wall Street Journal, dumpster fire they're currently engulfed in.
I don't think many people outside of this room have really gotten their heads around this RayBan Stories product, because literally anywhere I wear mine out and about, and I travel with quite a few tech nerd, that kind of the circle, and they're like, oh, when did that happen? When did you get those? I mean, they really don't know about it yet.
Right.
So could be a dog pile later, soon enough.
A lot of people in gaming are very familiar with it as well. But again, they're tech savvy. So anyone who's not on the forefront of tech definitely is not aware of it, for sure.
And Anna Marie, any other thoughts on having used it now for a week or so?
Well, I'm having fun with it. I mean, but I'm using it in all the most benign ways possible, right? Like it's got decent audio for listening to Clubhouse while I'm doing other things and don't want to be tethered to headphones. Easy to take a call on, easy to hear a call on. As I mentioned, I was at a charity event where Questlove was spinning and I was trying to take video, and I realized, none of the voice commands will work when you're in a setting that's noisy, like a like a bar or an event, right? So you'll have to use the hand controls on the top to take a photo or a video, and there's no sort of automatic streaming capacity that I can figure out. Everything gets downloaded to your phone, and then you have to, from there, upload it to your platform of choice.
So it just sends stuff to your phone, and then you send it from your phone to Facebook. There's no direct to Facebook. Oh,
yep. And I thought it would have like some cool feature where you say post to face. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
of course.
Do it. Yeah. So possible user error that I haven't figured that out, but I don't think so, because I've kind of played around with it enough to try to figure. Oh, and I got the ones with the second pair I ordered have the transition lenses, and those are pretty awesome. I mean, like any good transition lenses, I suppose, but the quality is solid, I guess. But the light, as you know, the light comes on in the front, but I think it's not enough now for anyone to even, like, you have to be looking for it to see it, which is why someone had made the GDPR comment about how in Europe they don't think that's going to fly. Like, they'd have to make that indicator more visible. Yeah. But I'm, as a user, I'm enjoying them. And if you order them, I mean, seriously, they're going to be in your box within like 3 days. They're very swift about filling orders right now.
Sold.
Yeah.
And it was about $300 or so, if I recall.
Yeah, the basic ones, just the sunglasses ones are $299, I think, and maybe just $50 more for transitions, and then you can get your own prescription in them too. I mean, that would just take however long it takes to put your own thing in there.
There you go. When you're listening to Clubhouse, can other people can tell you're listening to Clubhouse? What's that like?
Yeah, you have to be. I've asked my husband that. I'm like, how much can you hear? And you got to be in fairly close proximity, but I think you can hear about the same as if you had those, bows. I don't know what those are called. The neck,
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
And now my husband's saying, because he's in the room, he's saying he thinks it's quieter than the Bose ones that you wear around your neck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think if you were just walking down the street, like, somebody's going to be like, oh, what the heck is that? It's, but you can hear the conversation.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Should we go to the next one? Amanda, I invited you to come up. You might need to bounce out and back in. You looks like you're caught in purgatory there. The next one I have here is from The Verge. It's an interview with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who tells us he's in LA, and he just did an interview at a conference called the CodeCon with Kara Swisher. And so what was revealed in his interview with Kara is that TikTok approached Microsoft about buying TikTok when Trump was trying to force TikTok to be owned by a U.S. company. And Microsoft, it ended up not happening, basically. Well, because TikTok didn't actually really want to sell, to be honest. They were being forced to sell, and so they desperately needed to find a buyer very quickly. So no doubt they approached everybody, as you would do if you were TikTok and you were told you have to be owned by an American company or get out. You would do the same. You would approach every potential buyer instantaneously. And they did, apparently. So what will be interesting to see the other CEOs of the other big tech companies.
And TikTok just surpassed 1 billion users globally, Tyler.
Right.
So amazing
milestone. That was the headline in the past. And it was 1 billion monthly active users, which is very different from total users. These are right. So these are actually active users, not just people who have accounts, but people who actually use the product on a somewhat regular basis, meaning at least once a month.
Daily active or monthly active?
Monthly.
Sorry, I missed that.
With an M. So the next one is from The Verge. 6 creators of Clubhouse's 25-person creator program say it did not deliver sponsorships for their shows, leading them to look elsewhere. Oh, really? From The Verge here. Let's have a looky-loo. It says, Clubhouse needs creators, but creators need cash. Hosts looked to Clubhouse for sponsors. It rarely delivered, is the headline from Ashley Carmen. Came out just a few hours ago, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So, and what time is it East Coast right now? Let's see. It's New York time.
10:35.
10:30. So this came out 2 hours ago. Dozens of Clubhouse creators had been anticipating their first sponsorship meeting for months. As the inaugural class of Clubhouse's Creator First program, they were supposed to receive Clubhouse's help landing sponsorships and turning their shows into a quote-unquote profitable career endeavor. The creators wrote down lists of brands they wanted to speak with and prepared one-sheets pitching their live audio shows. But when the time came, it turned out they weren't getting one-on-one meetings with the brands. Instead, they would be pitching their show to a public room on Clubhouse alongside dozens of other creators where anyone on the app could join. It was a real joke, says Cindy Pham, a creator for the program and a media consultant herself. A creator in the program, not the creator of the program. A creator from the program and a media consultant herself. I feel like making it public was something they did to save face because they couldn't get any sponsors to show up, she says. The creators each had 2 minutes or so to pitch their programs to the sponsors in the crowd. Dozens of agencies and brands attended, according to the Clubhouse spokesperson, but technical difficulties tripped up multiple creators, preventing them from speaking. Clubhouse told the creators they'd hear more after the event and that interest was pouring in, but the contracts never surfaced. I received no email, so either that means nobody was interested in my show, nobody came, or I haven't gotten the information, says one creator who asked to remain anonymous because of their ongoing relationship with the Clubhouse team. And I suspected the second one, and I suspect the second of those options, which is that nobody came. 6 creators from Clubhouse's creator program say no brands sponsored them before the end of the program, and Clubhouse failed to turn any of their shows into suitable endeavors as it advertised it would. Well, no, it didn't promise that it would. That's a bit strong. None of them plan to keep doing their high production shows, and many, they're not really high production, and the fact that you're not continuing even after means you're probably not worth sponsoring anyways. And many are refocusing their efforts on other platforms simply because they have a better shot at being compensated for their effort. The creator program's troubles suggest bigger potential issues for Clubhouse. No, not necessarily, which is reportedly valued at $4 billion. If Clubhouse can't entice brands to push their cash behind its hand-selected premium content, how will it keep creators on the platform? Clubhouse has a whole cohort of creators who mastered this craft, and now they've got to figure out how to make it a living, says Owen Muir, a psychiatrist who hosted a mental health-focused show with his wife for the program, and Clubhouse is going to help us do it, or someone else will. It's unclear how much money Clubhouse is making right now, despite its unicorn status. It has partnerships with some major organizations like TED and the NFL, but the details of those deals aren't public, and critically, Clubhouse isn't directly monetizing the typical live audio rooms its users host. Creators themselves also have no way to regularly monetize their shows like they do on other platforms right now, because there's no ad network yet. Right. So what? Clubhouse also offers tipping as a way for hosts. Yeah. There's no automatic insertion of ads. Yep. Clubhouse said a number of the 25 Creator First shows landed sponsorships and gave 3 examples in a comment to The Verge. But of the 3 names Clubhouse provided, only one might have come through Clubhouse's team itself. The others either resulted from the creators' established relationships or through other Clubhouse creator who is unaffiliated with the program. Even when sponsors did show interest, Clubhouse's tools made it hard to support them. Pham, who was the lady at the beginning, who arguably had one of the most successful shows from a monetization standpoint, had issues validating sponsorships given that Clubhouse barely provided analytics. She says she and the other participants received the number of unique listeners, the total number of minutes spent listening, and the number of listeners a room had at its maximum. Obviously, if you know anything about sponsorship, that means nothing to anybody. I disagree with that. The creators point out they received no demographic information about their listeners, something brands need and want to see. That's a fair point. In a comment to The Verge, Clubhouse says it doesn't collect demographic data. There are also no in-app links within rooms or a way to designate that a room is sponsored apart from saying so in the title. No, that's not true. You could put it in the club room, the club page. People would have to click on the title, and you could put it in the title. I could put Tech News Around the World by Coca-Cola. You could do, yeah.
It's by Subway. Let's get real.
Be real. It was Subway's our sponsor, but I think when Clubhouse first came out, it was so buzzy, blah blah blah. Clubhouse gave creators a $15,000 stipend to cover the length of the program, although that was on a per show basis, meaning co-hosts split the cash. Creators were also given new equipment like iPhones if needed, which that's another $1,000 right there. A producer to assist them, that's another $1,000 right there. A creative agency partner to make visual assets, that's another couple $1,000 right there. And the Clubhouse's team direct line for advice to Vent. That's very valuable. Everyone who spoke with The Verge said they were proud of the shows they made, despite likely not being able to continue them because they need to focus on supporting themselves. Some of the Clubhouse's other advertised perks never surfaced. A team said it would help them book high-profile guests, for instance, but Clubhouse only named 3 connections made when reaching for comment. Creators also told that they received promotion both within and outside the app. Yeah, they got quite a bit of promotion, honestly. We had to beg for tweets about our shows. Jesus Christ. The company's biggest promotional tool was the Clubhouse staff itself. The creators say that if the staff member entered the room, that meant more people see it. Yeah. They will use their traffic to drive traffic. Yeah. In a statement to The Verge, Clubhouse spokesperson said, "At Clubhouse, we move quickly, but in public, talk with the community and ship improvements each week based on what it's done." Okay. The creators I spoke with say they plan to continue using Clubhouse in some capacity. They all love the community of the app. Roderick Martin, for example, hosted a show about UFOs for the Creator First program. He found some success from YouTube. A TV show crew discovered him there and made him a host of a new program on Discovery Plus. And he also hosts a podcast. I would have to make the ultimate decision and do a video type podcast to where I can be placed on YouTube. Anyway, so these I remember. Tyler. Yeah, let me make a quick comment here. What was it called? Creators First program. This was like 3-4 months ago, right? 5 months ago. In fact, we were just starting Tech News Around the World when that Creator First program started. And I recall quite vividly, and in fact, Justin Higgins and I talked about this on the phone at length. He had applied for it. I filled out the application, not expecting to be accepted. I was very curious in their process, and I remember chatting with Cal when the announcements came out of who they had selected, and they selected a bunch of people who applied. Some of whom it seemed had never actually done any shows before, but they pitched a topic that they wanted to build a show around, and they got, no doubt, tons of submissions and applications. They picked out their favorites. The ones that they picked were honestly quite surprising to me and Cal and Justin and the people who run the most popular shows in Clubhouse. Honestly, we were all like, "Oh wow." Kind of surprising that Justin wasn't selected. Honestly, I think Justin's political news stuff is fantastic. And what we do here, I think time has shown what we do is actually quite a good thing we got going on here. But this isn't what they were looking for. They weren't looking for shows that were easily fundable. By the way, I had a phone call 3 hours ago with somebody who wants to sponsor Tech News Around the World, one of the world's biggest companies. 3 hours ago, had an hour-long chat today, which is why I couldn't go into the Nordic Tech room today. So, and that's not the first time I've had. Did
you close the deal?
No, it wasn't Subway. So I did. It was an initial phone call, And the idea was, can we find a way to work together? It was that kind of a phone call. So anyway,
Hey, Tyler.
you hold that thought. I just want to emphasize that the shows that they picked for this Creator First program were not the ones you would pick if you were trying to make sure they found sponsors. They picked shows that would be very hard to get sponsors for. This show would be incredibly simple to get sponsors for. Justin's show would be very simple to get sponsors for. They didn't pick these shows. And I'm not complaining. This is not, my point is not to complain. My point is to say, when you pick shows, they picked some very peculiar, insanely niche, odd shows that would never, ever, ever get sponsors, ever. No, there's no brand to it attached to it. Like, how to play hopscotch, on just weird stuff. If you looked through the Creator First program and who was selected, I would be stunned if many of them got sponsors. The fact that any of them got sponsors, I think, is absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to hit my rare clap-o-meter sound applause to Clubhouse for helping some of these people who wanted to do this. And you have to go into that application with a whole lot of gratitude. Any indication of any kind of tone around lack of gratitude for the assistance that Clubhouse was giving, I think is sort of a sign that you don't have what it takes anyways. Like, Clubhouse doesn't owe you jack shit. They're just offering to help. You applied. Nobody forced you to apply. So you didn't, you applied for something. It took you, that was a very simple application form, which is why I filled it out. I wanted to see what it was like. It took 2 minutes. And you filled it out and you got a little recognition. You did your thing, whatever. You didn't get selected. You didn't win the Miss Universe pageant, and now you're crying crocodile tears. Go screw yourself. They don't owe you nothing. There was no promises we're going to get you a sponsor. There's no promises that we're going to make you a superstar. This wasn't, a record label like kissing your ass telling you they're going to, what? You totally misunderstood the whole purpose of the thing. If you now, people speaking negatively about this whole program, this program was pure generosity to the community to try and help some people, to try and boost, engagement. It was cool. It was a cool program.
Tyler, I feel really slighted by Clubhouse that my finger painting program didn't get enough attention.
Well, strangely, that's the kind of stuff that did get selected, Dave. I'm surprised you didn't get selected.
Well, so I was going to ask, who was the spokesperson? Like, I didn't hear at the beginning, like, who was quoted on, or did it say who was Clubhouse person?
Cindy Pham, a creator from the program and a media consultant herself, says, I feel like it was something they did to save face because there was no
on the Clubhouse side. The Clubhouse
the spokesperson didn't name themselves, but Gray, who's normally in this room every day now in both time zones, is the comms director for Clubhouse. So that's his role. So it's likely him.
Okay, well, Tyler, the reason I was thinking about it when you're reading the whole story is because in my head, it's a very much a sort of a TED formulary, and how so you're questioning like, oh, these are odd things that they selected, and it's never about selecting the most logical, or we have a metric here that says like these are clubs that have wide attendance, or it's a subject matter that is easily sponsorable. It is more about like diversity and finding the oddballs mixed in with a few. So I think that's why I asked who the Clubhouse person was, because that's kind of coincides with the couple of new hires that they had made internally to head community and content.
Hey Tyler, I had my own radio show on terrestrial radio show, AM radio, in Las Vegas some years ago. So I understand a lot about sponsorships, and I covered the broadcast industry as an analyst. I don't even think it was realistic, quite frankly, to think it would be very difficult to get sponsors right now for almost anything on this app relative to other things advertisers can advertise on, given the size. Number one, the really relatively small
Correct.
audience size is number one.
Yeah.
Number two, because it is global, which has its advantages for us meeting people from all over the globe. Advertisers tend to want to be a little bit more, focused, because how you would advertise in Japan would be different than what you would advertise in the United States. So there's all sorts of issues there. And I would say this: when I had my show, it was on a AM station that was kind of failing. Okay, ultimately got bought out by a religious thing. But I ended up having to get my own sponsors. And it was a little bit easier, but it was a little bit easier because I was local. So when you're local, you can go to local businesses who normally can't afford, to go on a national platform, and you can get something. Okay. But I went out and got my own sponsors because by the time I got to this station, they had the last advertising rep they had that was out there selling advertising had left to go to a station that paid them more money. So they didn't even have a marketing staff. So, I mean, I think that these people don't realize that, if you want to get sponsors when you're starting off in this kind of small, it's a startup, okay? You have to go out and get your own advertisers.
Right.
Don't rely on Clubhouse, so that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And you're talking about this from how many months ago when it was still a closed beta?
Yes, it was back then. It was not open yet. Yeah. But just, I find it peculiar. There's two interesting things here. Also note, this is from The Verge, and it's by the way, how did this story get written? Was there some news that occurred and then a journalist is responding to it? Or did a journalist have an idea for a story and then go find those people to make that story? It was the latter. This happened months ago.
And
right?
Good critical analysis.
Right.
Exactly.
The journalist had this idea. I want to write a Clubhouse hit piece. What kind of shit can we steer here? Remember that creators program thing they had? That didn't work out so well. None of those 30 or whatever shows that they picked turned into anything. Let's go talk to them. I bet they got some beef. And yeah, I bet that's a good place to start if you're a journalist. If you want to find some disgruntled, they don't have any disgruntled ex-employees yet because there's such a new company, but they might have disgruntled former users. That might be a good place to look. Those people who were part of the Creator First program. And sure enough, they spoke to some of them, and not all of them got sponsorships. Oh, dear sweet God. They
and if they failed on those two, Tyler, they could always resort to the journalistic license of critics say.
Right. You participated in this program that cost you how many thousands of dollars? Fucking zero. It cost you absolutely zero bubkits, nothing. And what are you?
And they gave you money.
And they gave you $15,000 fucking dollars and a new iPhone and a fucking somebody to help you.
That's the thing. Like, that's
holy fucking shit! You ungrateful sacks of shit. What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's the problem with the workforce right now. You're hearing it everywhere. Any jobs that are left, the people that are coming in, if they even call, don't even want to work. It's like, they want everything for free.
Tyler,
I'm overgeneralizing. I know that, but
Tyler should be the head of PR for Clubhouse. You ungrateful bag of SH1Ts.
It's just weird, man. It's just weird. It's like I went through YouTube from the beginning, right? Many of you know the whole history is like starting their version of the Creator First program, the very first paid creators in YouTube, and YouTube did nothing. No support, nothing. No $15,000 fucking dollars cash. Here you go. You want to be a creator? Here's some free cash. No, none of that. There was, hey, we're going to run ads. We can give you some of that money. Would you like that? Sweet Jesus, thank you very much. Yeah, well, that sounds good. And that's turned into a huge business. But let's be clear. YouTube has never given a penny to any creators in the way Clubhouse gave $15,000 to 30 different creators.
Yeah. If you're a creator, you need to use the platforms. You need to, it's not about partnering with them. I mean, we all use these platforms to our own advantage and benefit. And the creators that are doing well are on every platform, and they're leveraging them.
Right. Let's try and find the creator when the announcement was made of who was selected, like the 20 or 30 shows, whatever they were. When they were announced, I have a very distinct memory of Cal and I. So let me try and ping in this guy, Cal Patel. You guys heard of this guy? So Cal and I, he just DM'd me, by the way, so I know he's awake. Anyways, so I just pinged Cal. So Cal's going to come in here, and I'm going to say, Cal, do you remember when the creator first winners were announced, who were selected? He's going to say, yeah, of course I do. Do you remember the conversation we had where we looked at the people who won? Because I had never heard of any of them, not one of them. And then I looked at their bios on Clubhouse. Most of them had less than 500 followers, meaning they barely were using Clubhouse. They were not they weren't hosts of known shows, right? And that was intentionally what they were picking. They weren't trying to pick shows that they knew were likely to become regular, like Justin and myself. It was pretty obvious that Justin's going to be doing great in Clubhouse. It was pretty obvious that, this Tech News Around the World is going to be doing just fine. We don't really need their support. And then when I realized who they selected, I said, I get it. You're trying to inspire more creators who likely would not have started shows without this campaign. You're not trying to support the creators who are clearly already have the wind in their sails and already have a bit of an audience. You don't need to support them. They're already off and running. Those birds are flying. That's great. You're worried about the eggs that might not even hatch and transitioning them into potential birds that can get out of the nest and fly. That's cool. It's an incubator. That's what an incubator is. You're going to incubate some eggs and hopefully get some birds out of that. Groovy. Do that. We need more. By the way, I was a huge fan of that concept because this app needs more good content. And don't worry about me. We're going to be fine. We're going to be here doing this thing. We don't need your support. We're going to be fine. So, and if I wanted sponsors, we could have them in a heartbeat. I haven't even asked my sponsors who sponsor my very large multi-thousand people conferences every month for the past 8 years if they want to sponsor this room. I've never asked one of them. Mercedes-Benz, Visa, the banks in Scandinavia, the law firms in Scandinavia who've been sponsoring my events for nearly a decade every month. I've never once asked any of them if they want to sponsor this room. I could tomorrow, and I bet you half of them would. Don't need to.
The ones complaining, though. I mean, again, it's sort of like a little bit of what was promised versus what was delivered. But it sounds to me like Clubhouse kind of delivered on what they promised, and in the heads of some of these folks that were selected, they just thought it'd be like me going through.
You nailed it. You're right.
It'd be like me going through MedTech Innovator APAC, right? Like this, you're selected to be part of this incubator as a startup, and then after your 3 months, that you've really gained a lot, right? Like professionals, all the support at incubator, and then I'd come back and say like, "Oh, fuck you, MedTech Innovator! Like I didn't get my $500,000 seed round." Be like, what? That's not their responsibility.
Exactly.
Right.
And the thing, our currency is not the common metric. Our currency is the quest of authentic opinion and knowledge deep into subjects from people intimately familiar with the topics at hand, right? Like you can't measure that at this point. And the personal relationships that spurn out of authenticity are insane. I can't tell you how many outside of Clubhouse Zooms, talks, everything to get to know what people are up to, because in here it's all about the topic and our opinion or our authentic views or informed view about it. And I'll shut up.
So yeah, you nailed it, Anna Marie. They built up something in their head. Clubhouse didn't. I know exactly what Clubhouse was. They didn't really promise anything. They just said the only thing they promised is we're going to give you $15,000. We'll give you hardware if you need it, and we'll be available to you and to help you market your thing. They did all of that. Nobody disagrees with that. They did do that. And, it's on you to get sponsors. I mean, they're going to try and help you, but to criticize them for helping you try to find sponsorships is just really poor taste. And to abandon your show because you didn't get a sponsor, then don't do the show in the first place if you didn't want to do the show. Why are you doing a show that you don't actually really want to do? If there isn't a sponsor to do that, that ain't how it works.
Tyler, they need to get a gratitude log, these guys. They need to get a gratitude log and start writing in it. I'm
just upset that people were given $15,000 and an iPhone and support and, on and on and on. And then you're willing to go in publicly on a tech blog and write a hit piece about the app that did this for you. Come on, get real.
And the $15,000 you could have churned out a data scientist. Remember?
Now here's the concerning point. The Verge just tried to write a hit piece on Clubhouse. Guess what? Business Insider is also trying to write a hit piece on Clubhouse at the moment because they just asked me to interview. They just interviewed me for that. And they said, you can speak off the record. I said, I don't want to speak off the record. I want to speak on the record. Because yeah, because
so that's the question. Are they looking to develop something similar to Clubhouse?
Of course they are, because that's when a journalist interviews you and says, oh, by the way, we'd like to interview you and you can speak off the record. That's code for we're looking for dirt. I don't have any dirt. I have nothing bad to say. Clubhouse has been fantastic. We've built this fucking fantastic thing that I love doing every day. I'm grateful to this is what a beautiful gift this is.
How many hours, Tyler? How many hours a day do you spend of your life?
6.
That you could be
we do this twice a day, 3 hours each time. It's 6 hours a day.
And you love it.
And sometimes, many days we do 4 hours, and sometimes we do 5 hours.
Yeah. Gabby in the audience had something insightful to say. I don't know if you see your hand. Sorry.
Oh, there's Gabby. Okay. Just invited you up, Gabby. So anyway, the point is that I wanted to make was Business Insider's also trying to write a hit piece right now. The Verge just wrote a hit piece. I imagine there are by the way, these journalists who do this are friends with each other, in case you didn't know this. So
Vice News.
Journalists are very Vice. Oh, thank you very much. Was that JT? Who said that? IO, Eric, thank you. Yes, exactly right. Vice News tried to write a hit piece yesterday. And
Hey, Tyler, this is Gabby. I just wanted to add that, the biggest fail with the Creator First program, as I observed it when it went down, was that Clubhouse did a lot of town halls where they promised on focusing on the marginalized community, right?
Yes.
And so and that's fine because the marginalized community has an umbrella over different types of people. It's like disability. It's those less seen. It's those from areas that wouldn't get the microphone, right? And in doing that, when they went to make their choices of the programs that they picked up, which you already acknowledged, they did that. They found the marginalized community, but they didn't do it in an effective way to where they chose topics that Americans or people across the world would be interested in. Because I know a number of people that won the Creator First program, and I was like, okay, wow, your topic is of interest to how many people?
Right, super niche.
And they did a numbers game too, where they looked at people who didn't get that many followers, and they said, okay, you didn't get that many followers, so we're going to put you in this program, and it at least gave them the first step. But as someone already said it, our culture is ingrained into feeling entitled about things instead of being grateful.
Yeah.
But getting $15,000 today, that's a lot of money given the low cost of operating these kinds of platforms and expanding your network. Like when I did my startup, I only got $5,000 and that took us far enough to get more funding. So for people to still be complaining at $15,000
That's
plus
a great
hardware,
point. You have zero. There is zero costs in doing this. So what's that $15,000 for exactly? You don't need it.
Hiring an entourage to live. Like I lived in this world. No, so here's the thing.
Throw that shit in Bitcoin. Oh, you know what? If they had thrown that shit in Bitcoin, it would be 10x by now. So what? Yeah. No.
I lived in this world. It's the Kickstarter, and I'm not dissing anybody from Kickstarter, okay? But you do like $100,000 Kickstarter, and you hire a staff of 12, and you fly around to go meet vendors and stuff, and it's like that's how they think business works. They don't understand that business works by bootstrapping, getting creative, using genius as your superpower and not money. And they don't get it. And so they think throwing money at a problem is going to solve it. And,
well, sometimes it does, Chris. If you have enough money and someone's willing to fund you, you could lose fortunes for a long time until you build your business. Like Netflix was like that. Netflix hemorrhaged money for years. And if it had to turn a profit 10 years ago, they'd be out of business. But people kept giving them money, and now they're as big as they are because they had unlimited amounts of money, from Wall Street to build what they built, and then people were willing to tolerate years of massive losses. So it's not exactly true the
I
way.
think no, I think we're isolating opinions. I'm saying of the people that are saying, "Hey, 15K isn't enough. Give me more." It's like you have no costs. Like, what would Eli Rabani do with $15,000? Oh, shut up.
So the I want to. Oh, Ashley Carmen wrote the Verge article, and then IO down there on stage, Eric was exactly right. Yesterday, Vice wrote a hit piece saying that. Let me refresh it so I get the actual headline. Doctors are being forced off Clubhouse by anti-vax harassment. That's a hit piece. That's really
That's not fair. One of our own people in this room,
right.
Was quoted in that
Right.
extensively,
Right.
and he's not wrong. Okay, what he said was not wrong.
Right. But
yeah.
Are they being forced off Clubhouse by anti-vax harassment? Well, they're being harassed. I think saying that they're being forced off Clubhouse might be a bit strong.
Force is so the word force may not be correct technically, right? No one's forcing them,
right?
But they're just and I don't think they ever said they were forced. I think these doctors basically said
this is
they've
my
had
point.
it.
So, but you got to be careful when you write headlines, because in writing that way, you've exposed that you have an agenda and this is a hit piece.
Tyler, having written for Business Insider, I'll give you an example. I actually had an issue with that, by the way. Sometimes you submit an article, and by the way, in my case, I wasn't even submitting it. They were basically, the deal was they were going to syndicate my blog, so therefore they're supposed to syndicate the whole thing, including the headline. In one case, they changed the headline to something I thought was inaccurate as to what somebody had said. That was the headline, and I had a real bad reaction to it, and so they had a issue with like a retraction. But sometimes you have editors at the higher level, other than the byline author, that decides to change a headline or make a headline. So it may not necessarily be the author of the piece. They may not, particularly, if they're getting salary, they're not going to necessarily speak up and lose their job. I wasn't getting salary by Business Insider. I was just doing a favor when they were a startup, and by letting them syndicate my thing. So the headline may not be chosen by the author of the article.
I understand that. Yeah. So here's what I want to check out. The journalist for Vice who wrote the hit piece yesterday, Sophia, I'm looking at her Twitter account. She's followed by Dr. Donish. Okay, so Donish knows her, actually, as he implied in our DMs. And then the person who wrote the hit piece today is right here, Ashley Carmen. Are they friends on Twitter? I'm willing to bet $1,000 they are. And the one who's writing the piece for Business Insider is, I look up her name, and I'll bet all three of them are friends on Twitter together.
Well, by the way, just because they follow each other on Twitter doesn't make them friends. You probably also.
I bet they comment to each other. I bet they like each other's posts.
No, but you also you'll also follow your competitors just to see what they're doing. Think about that.
My point is, I bet they know they're writing these articles simultaneously.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, and I used to cover City Hall in New York City, what happens is all the reporters see blood, and they go after him
they
like
dogpile.
sharks, right?
This happens.
Right.
Ken, you would agree this is in journalism.
Even if you're colleagues and friends,
I agree with what you're saying. Absolutely.
You're competing incredibly for the story, and so you don't want to be friendly in the sense of sharing anything, and so you're coming from different, and you want a new angle. So it's not like you're coordinating in any way. It just seems that way because everyone then follows the story. It just becomes, if you're not there, then you've really messed up. And so what the New York Times does usually is, because they're the paper of record, they'll sum up what other people have reported, and they've been criticized often for not attributing the original story to some other publication, as if, okay, now we've spoken. it's in the Bible. And so that's the dynamics in my view.
Yeah, but the headline that doctors are being forced off of the app because of harassment is kind of suggestive that there's some sort of nefarious conspiracy or the app is removing them. I think a better, more representative title would have been Doctors Struggle to Fight Misinformation, Disinformation on Clubhouse. That's more representative of the actual story than I think the way it was presented.
And then the headline in this one, the sub headline, the actual headline is Clubhouse needs creators, but creators need cash. That's fair enough. That's actually a very fair headline. Hosts looked to Clubhouse for sponsors. It rarely delivered. Yeah, that's also not unfair. Hosts looked to Clubhouse for sponsors. That's might be true. It rarely delivered. That might be true too. But the in her tweet, Ashley, who wrote this article, where she says, "Here's the article here. Where did it go, Ashley? What happened?" That Clubhouse failed to deliver. Basically, that's where you're taking it a little too far. They didn't. Or they didn't live up to their promise or something like that. I have to find where it went. Anyway, here it is. Ashley, 6 creators from Clubhouse. Where did it go? It didn't deliver sponsorship. 6 creators from, anyway, it's kind of, it's interesting now. The 2 have just come out in the last 2 days. Let's see if there's one tomorrow from Business Insider, because that's kind of when it would expect to see it, because I talked to the journalist like on Sunday. So the piece will probably come out around tomorrow if it does. And what's going on? What do we make of 3 Clubhouse hit pieces coming out in the same week? Seems a little interesting. What an interesting little coincidence here. What's going on exactly? Okay, so the next article is a hands-on with Android 12.1 with support for foldable devices, including update taskbar. Who cares? Next one from Engadget. 1Password partners with email host called Fastmail to introduce masked email, which creates unique emails for logins. Great. Apple does that too. So if you're not an Apple user and you like that feature that Apple's kind of bundling now to help you create obfuscated emails for every new thing that you sign up for and then route them back to you in a very clever way. And now 1Password is doing it too. That's very cool for people who don't benefit by being an Apple user. The next one from CNBC, Coinbase, the huge, ginormous crypto exchange that did the big IPO a few months back, says it will let U.S. users directly deposit any percentage of their paychecks into Coinbase account in U.S. dollars or cryptocurrencies. That's nice, pretty smart. Brian Armstrong, the CEO, took to Twitter to say, one step closer to crypto payroll. Oh, I love the little hint there. That's very clever. I didn't see that coming. Which is pay your employees in crypto eventually. Like if they can help.
That's
That's
going to be it, right? You can pay your employees in crypto. You can move everything into the third rail, the DeFi world, and free speech. Authenticity behind what you say, being able to monetize your ideas and creative works with NFTs, protecting IP with NFTs. Like, it's going to open it up. And, when you do cross-border hiring, that's a big challenge. Like, we're trying to use that Boundless or whatever company that you mentioned here, or somebody mentioned here, because I have an engineer from South Africa.
Yep.
Like, it's going to solve a lot of problems if I can pay them in crypto.
Yep. It's very cool. So the next one is from Vice. The researchers who disclosed 3 iOS 0 days last week says Apple apologized for the delayed response and said it is still investigating the vulnerabilities. Yeah, they needed to respond because they're in deep doo-doo because somebody, this cybersecurity researcher, found some very key vulnerabilities in iOS and then alerted Apple very publicly. Well, first he alerted them privately, as good people do. Kudos to that dude, whoever that is, by the way. kudos to a cybersecurity researcher who found zero-day exploits, and rather than monetize them like Pegasus did, making $10 million per country per year, how many countries do we assume are using Pegasus from NSO Group? I don't know.
70.
20, 30, 40, 50? Yeah, 20, 30, 40, somewhere in that neighborhood. 40, 70. Maybe 70. You might not be wrong there. Let's do 50 for easy math. So 50 times 10 million, that's 500 million per year. Not bad. Not bad income for very little costs. Very low cost around that. So that's a whole lot of profit margin. That's how you can monetize a zero-day exploit. And this cybersecurity researcher, rather than do that, he found 3 exploits, zero-day exploits, and rather than monetize them in the way that as he probably could, like Pegasus, he decided to call Apple and be like, "Hey, Apple, guess what? I've just found a whole bunch of zero-day exploits. Just thought you should know. Go ahead and send me here's my Christmas shopping list on Amazon, and you're welcome." And they didn't fix them or even really respond. And so he said, "Listen, if you're not going to respond, I'm going to take these public." So he took them public, and he wrote a blog post and shared the code, shared the links to his GitHub account to publicize these. And so Apple's got to do something now. And indeed. And interestingly, here's the interesting part that I've not heard any tech journalist point out, and I'm only just realizing myself. Some of these 0 days that this dude found, because he found 3, are likely to be the Pegasus vulnerabilities. It's very possible that the ones he found are the ones that Pegasus are using themselves. And so if Apple fixes these, and now we might know why Apple hasn't fixed them. Because maybe the FBI is using these vulnerabilities, and they've told Apple, this is our back door, and this guy found the FBI's back door, and that's why they can't even respond to fix them.
Wow.
It offers plausible deniability in this case, where Apple can be like, "Well, look, we value privacy, and this is, outside of our terms or illegal activity that, it's not on us."
So let's see if they fix them, and if they don't, well, he made it very publicly known that they exist. So Apple, what are you going to do? If this is something to do with Pegasus, which no doubt they would want to plug Pegasus's their exploits, but if they don't plug them, that's super crazy, bizarre behavior, super insane behavior. So yeah, but by airing all of this laundry publicly, he's now put Apple right in the spotlight. What are you going to do, Apple? Are you the good actors that you've claimed to be? What's going on here? It's going to be very interesting.
What's the music for an exploding brain? Because that's incredible insight, Tyler. And I would go further and say, what do the Israeli and U.S. and maybe other intelligence services have a stake in this? How is their stake in terms of the use of these vulnerabilities?
Just about the worst bug bounty program in the world. I'm just reading some of the back channel chatter on people. Defenders of a multi-trillion-dollar company can't whine, but this stuff is hard. They operate at scale. In the face of evidence that Apple crushed all the numbers and found that the company's issues was too high to merit action. It's to be continued. There will be more fruit to be shooken out of this tree in days to come, no doubt. So the next one, put a pin in that one. That one's gonna come back. That one will be back in the headlines in the next sooner or later, and it'll be interesting to see the next headline in that ongoing saga. The next one says a French startup called Swan, which offers banking as a service tools to companies, raises $16 million from Excel. Wall Street Journal says some Bitcoin miners, including TeraWulf and Compass Mining, are partnering with nuclear power plant owners amid criticism from environmentalists. About what exactly? Some cryptocurrency miners are striking deals with operators of struggling nuclear plants, which are carbon-free and have excess power capacity to spare. Hence my comment, what are they complaining about exactly? The Bitcoin miners under fire for their sizable environmental footprint are forging partnerships with owners of struggling nuclear power plants with electricity to spare. These matchups have the potential to solve key issues facing each industry, executives and analysts say. Electricity-hungry Bitcoin miners want stable and carbon-free power, while nuclear, and kudos to them for wanting to go carbon-free, by the way, right? I mean, that is one of the criticisms of Bitcoin is that, it's causing CO2. And then here are the miners making a genuine effort to not use coal plants and coal power and try and keep the power of their mine, trying to make Bitcoin green, right? And I would argue by using the excess power from nuclear power plants, that's about the best way one could go. Ben, you might have a thought on this, I imagine. Anyway.
Wow, it takes a while to get to the unmute button when the phone's in your pocket.
That's right.
You're not expecting someone to call on you. How you doing? Yeah,
Good.
I mean, nuclear clearly incrementally produces, I understand, pretty much no carbon per new unit, after the thing's built. And if it's going to waste, that's cool. I'm personally not worried about the energy consumption of Bitcoin. I'm concerned about the carbon output. Got plenty of energy on the planet. So I think it's a move, and especially if and how fast they can turn it on and off and stuff. But especially if it's going to help the plant to operate more efficiently, potentially, it sounds like a good peak smoothing thing. Yeah, good luck to them. That'd be my thoughts.
I have a point to add here.
Go ahead.
I think the next FUD that's going to be created around this, after the miners prove that they're, more than 50% green, is going to be based on the e-waste, the actual machines themselves.
Aha, interesting point. Like all of the chips and the rigs, the mining rigs themselves, when they expire, what to do with those old all those processors or whatnot. Interesting point.
Yeah, different miners have different policies as to what they do about the old stuff. So some of them run it into the ground once it's made, once it's made its money back. Some of them say, well, at some point they becomes not worth it anymore, because what happens is they end up consuming more electricity than they earn back in Bitcoin. They have different policies, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly the life cycle of these. They're special machines, by the way. They're not graphics cards. They're special.
Right.
ASICs, as they call them.
Yes.
Application-specific ICs,
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how much lifetime they get out of them. The figure at the top of my head is 5 years, but I think it varies, and it varies by policy of the miner as well.
Yep.
It can actually be much lower. In some instances, depending on the power that you buy for the machine, depending on how relatively new it is, it tends to be about 3 to 4 months to pay off the machine for itself. And after about a year, it doesn't make sense to run it after that. So I've run a rig before, and it was a little frustrating how much paperweights I had at the end of the year.
It also is a function of the price of Bitcoin, because I had a friend, Sam Cole, who had one of the earliest at one point he was the biggest miner of Bitcoin he was based in northern tip of Sweden there, because he was taking advantage of the cold and was selling the excess heat to the city. And he was the biggest consumer of energy in all of Sweden, if not Scandinavia, for his Bitcoin mining rig called KNC Miner. And he produced his own specific processor. Was his secret sauce, but the price of Bitcoin crashed down to $200, and it just wasn't economically viable, and he couldn't stomach it. And then as soon as they liquidated, the price jumped up to 1,000, or what was it? What was that? And that weird spike of 3 years ago, it went up to 20,000, 19 something, and it would have saved his company had he just was able to hang out just a little bit longer. Anyway. The next one, Lena AI, a conversational service positioned as a HR Siri for employees, raises $30 million and counts Nestle, Coca-Cola, and Procter & Gamble among its customers. Conversational AI like Siri for employees. And it's like your Siri as your HR department. This is kind of interesting. Lena AI, Leena. Enterprise AI platform Lena raises $30 million to be Siri for employees. And founded out of New York in 2018, is one of numerous conversational AI platforms that enable companies of all sizes to automate conversations through chatbot-like technology. However, Lena is carving a niche for itself by focusing specifically on human resources teams. It's basically an automated employee help desk. Kind of interesting. Okay, the next one is from the New York Times. As Amazon's video game business lags, yeah, that's true, executives concede that its new, much-delayed PC-based MMO called New World has to be our breakthrough. Or what? You're going to run out of money? I don't think so. I think you got plenty of money to try again, Amazon. The tech giant has struggled to produce popular games, but a much-delayed title released this week could be the first step in a turnaround called New World, which has received generally positive reviews from players who have tested earlier versions. Okay. I guess maybe they'll get out of gaming if this isn't a success. Anyone have a take on any gamers on Amazon's new game called New World? Okay, next one is a report has come out now that 22% of healthcare providers saw an increase in patient mortality following a cyber attack driven by COVID-19 and third-party vendor security gaps. Uh-oh. So it says here, ransomware is a patient mortality risk. Third-party vendor says. 1 second here. Okay. A new report reinforces the patient safety risks posed by ransomware attacks. 22% of surveyed providers saw an increase in the rate of mortality in their healthcare organizations after a cyber attack. The driving factors include the COVID-19 response and the security gaps within third-party vendor ecosystem. Here's the quote. The possible adverse impact on patient care due to third-party risks is the biggest pain point in organizations, according to the report. Cyber attacks have resulted in more extended hospital stays and delays in procedures and tests that have resulted in poor outcomes. For the report, industry stakeholders have long warned of the imminent risk to patient safety posed by cyber attacks and the downtime brought in responses. Well, that's a problem. I had not really considered that. Let's hope there's a whole lot of solutions coming to the medical space very quickly.
It's got to be blockchain at some point, Tyler. That's what it's got to be. Something that is just as hard to hack and as to use. Yeah.
The next one is Activision. According to the New York Times, Activision Blizzard settles with the U.S. employment over its workplace harassment lawsuit and will create an $18 million fund to compensate eligible claimants. And I'm just reading the tweet. This is Activision's gotta make good. And I actually want to applaud. There was actually a really good quote from the leader of Activision in this article. And here it is. There's no place anywhere at our company for discrimination. This lawsuit's based on sexual harassment and discrimination. And they're putting together this $18 million fund for the victims of it. The question is, how many victims of it were there? I'm not sure that we know if that's been publicized. How many women with that work there claim to have been victimized by this? It's not really known. There's 10,000 employees out of, we could do some crazy napkin math and, pick a number of how many people we think were sexually that are valid claimants in this and then divide that by 18 million. They seem pretty confident that this is a reasonable number because they say any excess amount will be sent to charities and, to address this issue. But, I suspect that this is potentially a very generous amount. So we'll see. The quote from the Activision's chief executive says, "There's no place anywhere at our company for discrimination, harassment, or unequal treatment of any kind, and I'm grateful to the employees who bravely shared their experiences, and I'm sorry that anyone had to experience inappropriate conduct." It seems legit to me. It seems that seems like a very reasonable statement. And putting together this fund and settling it, kudos. Glad to see some progress here. But there will be more to continue. And people are I say all of this because the first tweet that I noticed was somebody said 18 million for a $59 billion company is insulting to the victims and public. This is not enough to incentivize real change and better work conditions. I don't know that that's the issue. The issue is to settle with it's not for you to say. They settled the issue with the people who are suing them. The people suing them thinks it's a suitable amount, or they wouldn't have settled. So you, as the person on Twitter throwing your thought bombs into this, doesn't really matter. The person suing thought it was a suitable settlement, and they accepted it. But so the issue is, you don't know how many people are claimants. What if it's 2 people? Is $9 million not reasonable for being sexually harassed at work? You don't know. The point is, you don't know, because for you to make that statement, you're claiming to have some knowledge of how many people were victims to be able to decide if 18 million was enough. You don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. If it was 2, I think everyone would agree 9 million is probably a pretty fair settlement for a sexual discrimination. If it was every woman in the company, 5,000, then you might have a point. But you don't know. So don't be throwing out hot takes on half-baked information. So, yeah, we have to find out how many people are actually claimants in this to make a calculation to see if we think it's unfair or not. So kind of withholding judgment on that one. But again, the people suing settled. They felt it was fair, or they wouldn't have settled. So next article from CNET. Facebook-backed company called 2Africa. Number 2, then the word Africa. 2Africa Consortium says its subsea internet cable will include the Middle East and India when it launches in 2023, expanding on Europe and Africa. Okay, so a Facebook-backed consortium of tech companies has announced an extension to a subsea cable system, and this is not yet in anybody's mind yet. I imagine in the future it will be, when they look back and they think, you know what, we probably should have been a little more mindful of Facebook and Google, and these, very notably, those 2 are incredibly active in laying these international internet cables, these subsea international cables. And but for now, nobody's paying it any attention, other than the FBI certainly is, because the FBI in America is prohibiting. There was a cable that was proposed between Facebook and a Chinese state-owned company, and America said, no, you cannot participate in that, because the U.S. knows these cables are data troves. These are easily tappable, and this has been known for a very long time. And so the intelligence agencies are aware of these issues, of who owns these cables. Yet the public at large is totally asleep on this whole issue. And I imagine
there's some great stories during the Cold War with in the Soviet Union about tapping cables, and it was a whole art, breaking into each other's transatlantic cables.
Yeah, so. I think 10 years from now, there's going to be some really interesting headlines and stories about shit that goes down as a result of this. And then the public will wake up and be like, shit, why didn't we pay attention to who was actually laying down these cables? Who thought it was a good idea to let that company lay a cable? So anyway, it'll come back to bite us in the ass, and we'll talk about it in 10 years from now. The next one from TechCrunch says a company called Coalition, which offers cybersecurity tools to insurance companies, they certainly need them, to 50,000 companies, raises $205 million at a $3.5 billion valuation, totaling $500 million. A San Francisco-based cybersecurity insurance company raising $300 million. So that's all you need to know. That space is booming. And we said this space was going to boom. We told you the whole insurance thing was going to boom, and cybersecurity is obviously booming. So Cloudflare announces object storage service R2. Who cares? The next one's from TechCrunch, a company called Gem, which integrates with LinkedIn to help automate data collection. Those are important words. Automating data collection. Your ears should peak up when you hear the combination of data collection and automation. Pay attention. That's weird shit can happen very quickly. And follow-up correspondence with job candidates raises $100 million at a $1.2 billion valuation, called Gem. LinkedIn to help automate data collection and follow-up correspondence with job candidates. That's kind of clever. Next one, UK startup Multiverse, which finds diverse candidates to fill apprenticeship roles at organizations, raises $130 million. Image sharing service Imager has been acquired by Media Lab, which owns Kick and Whisper and Genius and WorldStar Hip Hop and other brands. Imager says it has 300 million users. Norwegian warehouse robotics maker AutoStore plans to IPO in Oslo. Sources say valuing the company at $11.7 billion. Yeah, and Norway would be one of the first countries on the planet to have warehouse robotics, because it's one of the most expensive cities in the world to do anything. It's one of the highest paid employees on the planet are in Norway. So they're quickly automating everything. Go into any fast food restaurant in Norway and try and find somebody who works there. It's not easy to do. They're replacing them with computers. Why? Because the computers cost way less than employing Norwegians. And in fact, fast food restaurants, if you do find a person, it's not a Norwegian working in there. You know who it is?
They just can live in leisure, right? Thailand,
yeah, they
now
do.
They can live in leisure.
Goddamn Norway. You got too much money, Norway. That's your problem. The point is that the people who work in the restaurants in Norway are not Norwegians. Do you know who they are?
Swedes,
as Craig knows, because he's Swedish. So, and that tells you all you need to know about how much money Norway has that Swedes go there to work in their restaurants.
Yeah, Tyler, but that's because they planned it for over 20 years and they've used them. And
kudos.
But they have a work ethics. They still work. I mean, the guy told you about that guy who drove around taxis and he wouldn't take money from me.
Correct.
Because he just enjoyed the conversation.
How long ago was that?
About 10 years ago.
Oh, so it wasn't a Tesla. Do you know all the taxis are Teslas now, and they're not the cheap Model 3s, they're the Model S's. You know, the most common car in Norway is the Model S. Like, everyone in Norway can buy a Model S. Like, that is the average car. Like, that's no big deal for Norwegians. That's like, everyone's got one.
And just to frame it, an S is about what, 90K base?
So, welcome to Norway. Here's your $30 salad, and lovely place. Holy cow. If you've not been, you'll love it. It's gorgeous. The people are insanely educated, crazy highly educated, highly functioning society, and life's good in Norway. Holy cow. The standard of living there.
Great place for hiking.
Oh my God.
7 hills.
Easily the world's best outdoors. Easily. There's nobody's on at that level. And they don't want anyone to know. That's the amazing thing about Norway. By the way, Norway is honestly, I mean, everyone talks about Sweden and COVID. Norway kicked fucking ass on COVID. Like, they just fully reopened everything because they're done. Like, they're all good. They kicked COVID's ass. In the COVID Olympics, they got a medal. You can debate what medal they got, but Norway and Finland both. Let's give credit to Finland. Norway kicked the
Denmark too.
Denmark didn't do bad. Yeah, Denmark did fine. Yeah. My point is, Norway did so well. Everyone's talking about Sweden. Norway doesn't care that everyone's talking about Sweden. Norway's just doing its thing. They've got the highest standard of living on the planet by far, and they don't want you to know. And it's one of the most gorgeous places on the planet with the highest standard of living, highest education. Any meaningful ranking you can, if we want to debate, how do you judge a successful country? We could do it on freedom of speech. We could do it on average household income. We could do it on 50 different metrics. I challenge you to pick any of them.
They'll top the lot.
They will be in the top.
It reminds me when
they will be top,
Trump,
probably number one, guaranteed top 3 in all of them.
Reminds me when Trump was talking about wanting more Norwegians coming into the U.S. And
well, he was thinking, like, where are the Norwegians?
Yeah, but what
you know what
Norwegians are going to leave for the U.S.?
Right, the Norwegians are laughing themselves silly. Like, yeah, are you fucking kidding me? Why the fuck would I leave here?
Okay, but on the other side,
you guys are hanging out by a dumpster, heating
Only
yourself.
thing they don't have is this California.
Hold on,
weather.
Craig's got to defend Sweden here for a second. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, on the other side, all of that is true. But on the other side, here in Sweden, we actually produce things. Where in Norway,
see, now you're getting a little taste of this Nordic cousin rivalry that they have there.
All they do is produce oil and fish.
See,
that's number one.
And the Swedes got to jump in and remind everybody, and then some Dane's going to jump here and mention Lego in a second. So watch out. We got to.
Secondly, they're supposed to vote to no longer produce oil.
Let them have it. The Swedes. Hold on. Just for everyone to know, the Swedes are still bitter because Sweden almost got all that oil money. By the way, they missed it by a minute, and so they're still bitter about it. 100 years later. So, it is what it is.
Two questions.
Sweden's doing great. Yeah.
Are they happy?
They are.
How do they do on the happiness index? And number two,
you know what, Maurice? Let me answer that for you.
Maurice,
let me answer that for you. The Norwegians are so fucking happy that when that survey person comes around the planet and starts asking everyone, "Are you happy?" they intentionally all answer, "We're fucking miserable. Get out of here." That's how intelligent they are. They're that highly educated that they know
give away your fishing spot.
They don't want no one else coming in and fucking up their whole paradise they got going on over there.
Don't they have that king? Is the king or the prime minister that rides around?
You know what? I'll go and save them.
Constitutional monarchy, yeah.
Like he's just hanging out. He's like, waiting in line for not a burger, fish probably fish. He's waiting in line for something. He's just like hanging out, and everybody's like, "Hey, I just voted for you."
Let me put it this way: is Ellen in here? They get off work at 3 p.m. Your boss comes by your office every time people go to lunch. The boss comes by and says, "Well, just take the rest of the day off. It ain't no big deal. You'll see you tomorrow." It's like they don't work. Craig, am I wrong? They don't. They leave. They're barely just. They show up at 10 a.m. They have coffee, a cinnamon bun. Then they go to lunch at 12. Then they leave. They come back and they go home at 2:30 p.m.
Meanwhile, in places like South Korea, you have a 40-hour workday. So just by comparison,
it's incredible. Anyway, Norway's just crazy. And to answer the question about the weather, Maurice, half the year it's beyond paradise. The Nordics in the summer, there's one of the, and even the Swedes are trying to keep that secret, by the way, because the Nordic summers are just one of the most amazing things on the planet, and they don't want you to know that. They don't want Instagram to find out about it. They're all whispering to each other, let's keep this shit secret. Look what happened to, lots of other places look what happened to, Positano, Italy. Look what happened to
Japan.
Look what happened to Japan during the cherry blossoms. Let's just hush hush on the amazing magicalness of our Scandinavian summers, hush.
And it is magical.
It is. It's utterly magical, and they don't want you to know. So
are we just
and the crayfish. I love the crayfish season.
Huh? Yeah, crayfish is September. Yeah. So,
but there's no sun. There's no sun. There's
half the
sun
year. That's right.
And then you're a bat. You have to be a bat.
Yes, the darkness.
That's like a long time to be a bat.
Yes, no, you get the fuck out of there, as most of them do. So they leave.
Don't push that button.
Yeah, they get out. They do. They go spend. They have ski week, and then they have the ones who can leave. Honestly, and they all know that. So I'm just letting the secrets out. Welcome to Scandinavian Secrets. The ones who can leave during the winter, and then they come back. So,
Tyler,
yes.
This is Jörg.
Yeah.
At the university, we all learned this is negative marketing. And as I'm considering to relocate, I figured out that folks in Utah always use the Mormons as an argument not to look at Utah as a state where to go. Sorry for this anecdote.
That's all right. Okay. So on with the other interesting headlines at the moment. We pretty much covered all of the TikTok says it has a 1 billion monthly active users. And LinkedIn confirms it's testing a new paid ticketing events service and says 21 million people attended an event on LinkedIn in 2020. Warner Music signs a deal to use Twitch's new content reporting system and launch dedicated Twitch channels for its artists. That could be really interesting. And I missed that part of the headline previously where Twitch channels for its artists, meaning Warner Music's artists. So that means Warner Music, who is basically a third of the music industry, their artists, which is basically 1/3 of all notable artists, will now have their own dedicated Twitch channels for themselves. So, who are Warner Music's top artists? I don't have them memorized. Warner Music artists. Let's see. All. I don't want all artists. How do I search by like top artists? Warner Music top artists. Let's try that. Okay, Ed Sheeran, LinkedIn, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Madonna, Neil Young. Everybody. So Prince, that would be amazing. Anyway, the fact that they will have dedicated channels on Twitch that they can stream and perform on Twitch, that's pretty freaking cool. And why is Twitch doing this? Well, they know because Spotify is about to launch this shit too, because Spotify's already got all the rights. And Spotify's got their version of Clubhouse, which is kind of like Twitch. Twitch just copied Clubhouse. Spotify copied Clubhouse. Well, more specifically, they acquired a company that copied Clubhouse called Locker Room, which they renamed Green Room, which they're going to bring into their mother default Spotify app. They've already got all the streaming rights. And all the artists in Spotify already check all their analytics all the time anyways. And now they're going to have dedicated all of their followers. They're going to be able to create rooms in there. And now Twitch is like, we gotta cut them off at the pass and make dedicated Twitch channels for all of these artists. It's going to be very interesting to see how musicians adopt this new live audio, social audio format, because in the Twitter example with the Twitter Spaces, they now have paid ticketed Twitter Spaces, just like LinkedIn just announced in that headline I read 2 minutes ago. Paid events on LinkedIn. You also have paid Twitter Spaces, which are like paid paywalled Clubhouse rooms, and then you've got Beyonce doing a concert in Twitter Space from her bathroom, or Taylor Swift sitting on her toilet with a guitar doing an acoustic set for $5 for 1 million people. Not a bad way to make $5 million for 30 minutes of playing guitar in your toilet.
So this is really interesting. So it's an interesting pivot. Twitch started off as an app literally to see Justin Khan play video games and talk. That's all right. It was.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how they've continued to evolve it, especially because the person who was one of the two co-founders, he's a partner at YC, and he says
Justin,
have to have a market. Yeah, he says you have to have a market before you start. You have to meet a need. It must be a need that you fix. It has to be fixing something that's not a Band-Aid. It has to be like cancer, right? That's what he says. Yeah. And I tweeted him, like we messaged each other, and I messaged him and I said, what was the major issue that you fixed with watching Justin play video games? Like that was just something you did. You threw it together. It happened to get a following. People started doing it because cab drivers were watching it. But it's interesting that they grew this out. Some of those artists already have streaming deals with other people. So I don't know how they're going to adjudicate, how they're going to allocate their resources when some of their streamings already, individual artists have made streaming deals with different places. And then I'm sure Live Nation is going to have something interesting to say about this also, right? Because they're going to lose out on all this ticketing if most of their concert work is done without ticketing, like with just app ticketing.
Okay. there's a new headline that just came in from Facebook. Facebook asks its oversight board for guidance on its VIP program. We know the system isn't perfect, they said. Facebook's calling on its oversight board to issue policy recommendations about its cross-check system. A controversial program the Wall Street Journal recently described as creating a two-tiered system of enforcement on Facebook where high-profile users often receive more lenient treatment for content violations. Facebook's Vice President of Global Affairs, Nick Clegg, said the company blog post Tuesday the cross-check program was built to prevent potential over-enforcement mistakes and to double-check cases. We know the system isn't perfect. We have new teams and resources in place, and we're continuing to make improvements, but more are needed. In a statement to Protocol, the board's head of communications said the board would consider the request through its usual process. Facebook must embrace clear rules which are enforced consistently and give users confidence they will be treated fairly. Facebook, your oversight board's telling you fucked up. We will be engaging with diverse civil society leaders, researchers, and other voices as we work to scrutinize these critical issues. And what's interesting here, and which is it's bizarre that Issy Lepowski, who wrote this, didn't mention this. First, it was revealed that there is this what's called the cross-check. Internally, it's called cross-check at Facebook. What it is a VIP list of lots of folks who are immune from Facebook's normal moderation. And now that that's been revealed, the next this article fails to mention that this oversight board on Friday asked Facebook to explain what the fuck is crosscheck. So now this article comes out saying Facebook asks the oversight board for guidance on its VIP program. Huh? That's a little weird. They just asked you on Friday, you mind explaining what this whole program is? You're kind of leaving us out like mushrooms out here in the field. Shouldn't we have known about this program, Facebook? Because that's kind of our jam. That's kind of our gig, is kind of, deciding who's violating and not. And now it's been revealed that you've got this kind of secret list of users who are immune from moderation. Shouldn't we, as the oversight board, have known about that?
Outrageous.
And now Facebook's claiming in this article, Facebook's asking the oversight board for guidance on its own VIP program. We know the system isn't perfect. What's going on? This is some weird communication breakdown going on here. What do you mean you're asking the oversight board? The oversight board's asking you. They got caught off guard, kind of a little embarrassed that, this thing even exists. And they asked publicly. We read the headlines. They didn't know that existed. Now they do, by surprise. And now you're asking them for guidance on it? Some weird shit going on there. Anywho, now we're getting into the fun tweets, although somebody oh boy, a whole lot of DMs. What do we got here? David Crace sends in a Star Trek-like handheld device that I'm tweeting out right now. It looks like a scanner, like that supermarkets use to, check the prices in the aisles, or when you're checking out in your shopping cart.
Yeah, tricorder, right?
Yeah, it looks like a handheld scanner, but this is no ordinary handheld scanner. Apparently, this new Star Trek-like handheld device that's under development can detect COVID. Pause for effect. Let's hope that'd be amazing.
It makes sense. Probably a microfluidic device that detects COVID.
How the hell is it detecting COVID? Pathologists and clinical laboratory personnel old enough to watch Star Trek will recall the tricorder. As Chris just joked, the multifunction handheld device that could non-invasively detect any disease or medical condition that the science fiction series needed to be revealed. Now, Florida-based Advanced Medical Solutions International anticipates bringing to market in early 2022 a similar tricorder-like handheld device that detects COVID in humans and on contaminated objects and surfaces. It's called the COVID Hunter, trademark. So good luck creating your own COVID Hunter. You got to come up with some other name, because they came up with that genius name, COVID Hunter. The device would be the world's first non-invasive touchless viral detector for COVID-19, which has reportedly killed 4.5 million people worldwide. The inventors make the point that the device is simply to detect the presence of the coronavirus. It is not a diagnostics test. For clinical laboratory scientists, this is yet another example of a new technology being applied to a clinical problem that could ultimately lead to a new diagnostic tools, not only for COVID, but ultimately for other viruses as well. And you can get a look at it and the creators of the COVID Hunter scanner that I just tweeted out.
It's a very, it's very exciting technology. My company works on a very similar kind of technology or capability, and it's exciting to see these kinds of technologies coming out now. But where were they, 2-3 years ago when we could have prevented this whole thing? So it's at least nice to see that there is some interest, although the accuracy of these devices may not be as good as something like PCR. It may be sufficient, epidemiologically speaking, to reduce the spread or at least hold it down so that we don't turn an epidemic into a pandemic. So at the very least, it's a good pre-diagnostic, I would call it, necessarily conclusive. So it's more like a thermometer that you would use at home. And then if your thermometer gives you some sort of reading, you would then go pursue more further diagnostics.
Okay. So next one up, response to, okay, next one up is this one from Evan, that the U.S. Army orders of pocket-sized drones tops $85 million. And there's an actual photo of this pocket-sized drone that I'm tweeting out now from Evan.
One.
Huh? You want one?
Size of what? Like a small bird? It's
yeah,
tiny.
It looks like a really small bird, yeah. What else could we say it looks like? It looks like half of a banana. And it's a drone. And the U.S. Army's ordered these. And it's got a little camera on the front. You can see that. And
so basically every soldier will have this little personal drone.
Yeah, it's got a camera. And they could fly these things in real sneaky around into a building and all around and know what's going on inside the building before they go marching in there. But we talked about yesterday that I believe it was the U.S. Army or one of the American arms of the military said they're investing heavily in drone swarm technology. So if you could get a bunch of these things to cooperate as a swarm, then things get really crazy really quickly.
Tyler,
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on why NASDAQ has dropped 2.7%?
Yeah, it's right from the start. It must be a report that came out just prior to the market opening today. Like a jobs report or some substantial report must have been released.
The interest rate on treasuries are going up.
That could be something like that, or a move like that. It says stocks dip, NASDAQ sinks as treasury. The benchmark 10-year treasury yield rose to reach its highest level since June.
Flight to safety, sorry.
That can do it. Interest rates going up can spook the market like that. So the next one is Zillow responds to viral TikTok video claiming housing market manipulation. Critics on social media say the company, Zillow or Zillow, we need to find out what the real pronunciation of that one is. But they responded to a viral TikTok video that claimed that they were housing market manipulation. The popular real estate website was criticized on TikTok by a video decrying an unnamed real estate company's potential nefarious business strategies. And Las Vegas-based real estate agent Sean Gotcher posted a 2.5-minute video to TikTok describing a scenario where so-called iBuyers uses its massive user-generated database to scheme the local housing market. An iBuyer is a company that buys homes almost instantly by relying on technology to determine the market-based cash offer. Let's say that a company buys 30 homes within a 2-mile radius, and let's say the price is $300,000. So they buy all of these homes at $300,000. Then on the 31st home, they buy it for $340,000. I know where this is going. They just raised the most recent transaction, and that lifts the property value on all of them. Very clever. In this video, Gotcher suggests the unnamed company is purposefully driving up home values in order to drastically increase its own profits and thus manipulate the market value. While Gotcher never names Zillow, social media users have suggested the company might be this target because of its size, popularity, and the fact that the company has created its own real estate program called Zillow Offers that buys and sells single-family homes. Commenters quickly pointed out the finger at Zillow and two other real estate services, Redfin and Opendoor, and the video was quickly given a second life on Twitter. Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman responded to the Twitter thread and called Gotcher's hypothetical untrue. There is a conspiracy between iBuyers, but it's to pay lower commissions to the brokers representing the buyers of the homes as well, by about 60 basis points so far. This may be one reason some brokers dislike iBuyers, Kelman tweeted in the thread. And Zillow, we pay market value. In an emailed statement to Yahoo Finance, who wrote this article I'm reading, Zillow said that while the internet has often been a powerful tool for the business and its consumers, it is full of misinformation and falsehoods. Zillow's home buying and selling program, called Zillow Offers, empowers movers with the ability to sell on their timeline, limiting the stress involved in the traditional home selling process. We pay market value for every home we purchase. When we looked at homes that sold traditionally because of our margins are so thin, it's critical that we price a home accurately. If we overpay, we'll lose money on the resale. If we make too low an offer, homeowners won't use us. We don't have the share to manipulate the market, nor do we have any desire to, said Redfin.
From what I understand, most of their advantage is in cost of funding. So it's usually like cash offers, and they could save, 5% or so on the transaction. So that does add up.
They sound like very reasonable responses.
No, I mean, it's true. They're paying cash. They're not really going that much over market. It's just,
right.
When someone's paying cash, it's a certain thing,
Right. Yeah. Although that is a known kind of gamification of real estate, which is you buy 10 houses in close proximity, and then the 11th house you buy a little above market, raising the average cost of all the previous 10. And now you're gamifying.
My 14-year-olds play that game. It's called Monopoly, and I taught them all about Boardwalk and how you want to have a hotel there and build as many homes because you could raise the price per night, and they get it.
Professor Asif, what's this one that you sent in about outrageous act by the Taliban?
The university, Kabul University, has got a new chancellor, and he has banned women from university. So the last 20, we've been saying, Taliban are going to be not the old Taliban. Well, they are preventing women from getting higher education. And so all the billions of dollars that have been sent to Afghanistan in the last 20 years to improve higher education, empower women, is being now, I was shocked when I read about a girl burning her jeans, and she was saying it was like as if she was burning her life. And we need to do something about it.
It'll
At
be
least
interesting.
speak it out.
It'll be interesting to see if China does anything, because China definitely supports the education of women, but they're kind of cooperating with the Taliban. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, here's a question for you. That university, I'm going to do. Here's a Tyler first in defending the Taliban. They made an announcement recently on this question of will they allow women's education, and their decision was they will allow women education up to the highest levels, university and whatnot, but that they must be segregated so that women go to school only with other women. So is it possible that banning from that university is on the grounds that it's because they were mixed with?
No, I mean, I think they're preventing women lecturers as well. It's not just
right, but is it because there's males at that university, Kabul University?
No, but they can have women colleges. Saudi Arabia, Middle East, many countries have even Catholic schools. Mm-hmm. But have nuns. I went to a Catholic school, so you can have all those things, but you don't prevent women from getting educated. What they're doing is basically 50% of the population is now being considered they're not relevant. This is
but
just
are they
wrong,
not, are they
and it's not Islamic. It's
uh-huh.
this is ignorance.
Up until now, they had been dividing the classrooms with a curtain in the middle, which kind of looked silly to begin with. And I guess those photos caused some unrest.
Okay.
I think it only looks silly from the outside, though. I mean, I haven't lived in a strong Muslim country, but I've spent a lot of time traveling through them, and so yes, from my U.S. perspective, or someone who's living in Thailand, it would be strange, but from within that context, it's interesting. Not Afghanistan, but I've talked with other women, and they actually prefer to have their own train cars, where they don't have to, they can just kind of be amongst themselves. So I would caution us from making value attributions, but if in fact this article, and I haven't had a chance to read it, absolutely prevents women from attending university, that's one thing. If they are kind of reconstituting which universities women go to versus men, I think that's more of a cultural attribution, and we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
Yeah, the thing is, Lakeisha, that this is the number one university in Afghanistan, and you're depriving women who are usually brighter than men. I have to say, in my 25 years experience as a professor, I can tell you that most of the last 10 years, people who've come out with PhDs from my lab were all women. And so I think this is just suppressing, if you like, that voice. And I think we all should call it out what it is, and to talk to our governments and say that we need to empower women to power the world, as I always like to say.
Absolutely. I'm such a strong proponent for women, so I don't want that to be misconstrued. I just haven't read the article. So I'm trusting your judgment when you say that they're banning women as opposed to they're saying, women will now, study in these buildings and men will be in the others. But I don't know enough about this case to really have a strong opinion on it.
That was the case up until now. They had this segregation type scheme, but I think it's unfortunate because the international community had such high hopes that the Taliban were going to stand by their word and not regress. And it's unfortunate to see this happening now in this way. Hopefully, something can change. Educating women is the best way to lift up all of society. So I definitely agree with Professor Asif.
From a tech point of view, my question is how much technology, at least in the cities, has penetrated enough. I think the Taliban was, well, I know they were using Twitter, and so I'm assuming they haven't brought it down in the country. And so what technologies, what forms of communication have people adopted because of the U.S. was stationed there and the educational levels that increased, that may allow for much more information and organizing and different influences to take place that's not going to make the Taliban be able to rule as easily as they might think.
And Maurice, what you just said, I think we should think of things like Khan Academy, which has made a huge difference around the world, and whether they could be, our governments can facilitate so that girls who are not going to university there can have access to knowledge from outside because of tech. So I was really interested in earlier on at the very beginning when you were having a discussion, Tyler, on tech or data scientists, where what was it? Pay later and get your degree kind of thing. I'd be interested to know more about it once you've done the deep dive, because if I can empower that to happen in England, I would love to do that.
Absolutely. I
Tyler,
think
may I
that's
comment, please? May I comment, please?
Yes. Yeah, you just interrupted
Thank
somebody
you.
in the middle of a sentence, Manal, so just let
Oh,
them
no, no,
finish.
no. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't hear anybody was talking.
There was.
well.
Okay.
All I was going to say is that absolutely, I think that what Professor Asif just referenced, I think that all of higher education, needs to and is in the process. Hopefully, those institutions that hope to stay around have to figure out, how we build people, how we can front load the education and then provide opportunities outside of the traditional loans that are just so heavy for students to carry. And then just really briefly, I just pulled up another headline pertaining to the article around Kabul University. And the piece that I saw was that women are banned from studying and working there until an Islamic culture can be established. So it may just mean, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm advocating for the Taliban either. I just really want to seek for my own understanding, but it may mean that they need to reconfigure things because of, as someone said earlier, there was such a strong U.S. And allied presence there that the practices were probably not in line with how the Taliban would want them to be.
Manaz?
Yep. Hello. The reason I came up, I heard Lakeisha mention in Muslim country, women prefer to have separated and all that. In reality, woman oppression and the Islamic law is against women. It doesn't count woman as a equal human being in this society. And there is no good Islamic and bad Islamic. This is all about Islam. I was born and I grew up in Iran. As you know, it's an Islamic country, and Islamic law is ruling the country. And when it comes to the education, I think I can relate to Afghan women, but at the same time, I'm coming from Iran, which has a different culture in the past 40 years with all the oppression. If you're looking at the population of the women, educated women and successful women, they have been more educated and more successful when it comes to the woman population. And but it's a constant struggle and going against this law and trying to get to the point that really they're fighting to establish their right and their place in a society. I feel really sorry and upset for Afghan women. When Taliban took over what they built and they achieved in the past 20 years was destroyed and demolished in a few months. And I'm just surprised some people coming and say, oh, this is Taliban, this is Taliban. But in reality, they have a different face, maybe in Iranian government or Afghan or Pakistan or any of these Muslim country. But if you're looking at Islamic law, a woman doesn't have right even when it comes to their kids. And so many other stuff. I'm not going to, this is not about this subject, but when it comes to the technology, unfortunately, with the current situation that it goes on in Afghanistan, I don't see even regular people disregard of the sex, woman or man, have the, the access to the technology that they deserve to have in 21st century. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Sure. So
Can I just say on that I totally disagree with that completely. I'm a Muslim, and I may not know as much as Manaz maybe. It's not Iranian because I've been brought up in England, but I would say that in Islam there's nothing about women have had rights. Even animals got rights. You weren't allowed. I've learned more from watching a film called The Message about Islam, and it gave rights to animals to not to be overloaded. Camel. So it's not Islam, it's cultural. And it's if you look at Turkey, you look at Malaysia, Indonesia, women are in all kinds of positions. And so I don't think it's to do with Islam. It's really to do maybe Shia is different. I don't know, but I don't think it's to do with Shia or Sunni. It's more to do with cultural exploitation of weaker sexes, and that's what we need to stop from it happening.
That's definitely important.
May
It's
I
important not
respond?
to disparage a group. I think it's important to perhaps discuss the policies. Not even culture perhaps is too much of a loaded term. I think if we directly address the specific policies, the individual policies, I think that itself is a more fruitful path forward.
Okay, so we have Cal back up on stage here, and just for a minute, because I remember we pinged my dear Cal on that article, which, by the way, Cal, I just DM'd you the article from The Verge. It's basically a hit piece on Clubhouse. And did you happen to see the article yesterday from Vice about Clubhouse, which mentioned Dr. Donish about?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, the doctors.
Right.
Yeah, the doctors
Yes.
leaving.
So that was a bit of a hit piece on Clubhouse, claiming that doctors are being forced out of Clubhouse by anti-vaxxers, was the headline. And this one is also a bit of a hit piece where it says that Clubhouse didn't make good on its promise to find sponsors for the Creator First program. You remember the Creator First program?
Yeah, I do.
And do you remember when the Creator First program winners, for lack of a better word, the ones who were chosen, were announced? We looked over it was like 30 or so that were selected, right? And you remember you and I looked at them.
Yeah, you and I went through them all.
Right. Yeah. And I told the audience exactly that. And I mentioned to the audience that we were both we realized something when we looked at these. Kind of to, who was it that was on to Gabby's point, they clearly made an effort to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Diverse, in gender, race, age. Like, it was a very diverse group, right? And I kind of applauded them for that in the back of my mind, and then, but there was clearly an effort to do that. And then it was the thing that I think that was most surprising was we realized while looking at this that clearly they were not trying to find shows that were likely to be economically successful, like tech news or...
No, they were sending signals, right? I think we talked about that.
Right. This is my point.
It was at the risk of moving the business forward in a sense, right? Or moving the business agenda forward. It was sending a bunch of signals. Now, what I didn't understand at the time, and probably understand it slightly more now, but who they were trying to send those signals to, right? Was it to investors, the general marketplace, the existing people that had first joined, right? And trying to keep them happy. But it wasn't rational about quality of content. And these guys are the ones that are going to create some serious rooms that's going to create some traction. And, there wasn't any genre mix either. Right? Okay. So one news one this. There wasn't some logical sense to it then. If I remember. Yeah,
it seemed like that. And we looked at the people who were the creators of the shows, and they were remarkably they were not known popular voices in Clubhouse, for example. It wasn't the us or Justin, who's very well known for his political news, or news, or the real common, notable large room hosts, right? Which then we realized, they're not looking to support the rooms that already seem to be working. They're looking to inspire people to try really interesting, creative, slightly wild type of conversations. Some of them were very quirky, like very, very quirky, and people with very small followings. So
psychedelic rooms, various ones.
Yeah. Which, by the way, here's my point. Here's why I mention all of this, because it was clear if they were aiming to select rooms that were easy to get sponsors for, they would pick rooms like Justin or Tech News, or, there's lots that they could have picked. They clearly weren't doing that. They were picking rooms that were not easy to find sponsors for. right? Like you said, the psychedelic room, the UFO room.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because sponsors are not interested in the UFO room. So why do the UFO room or the psychedelic? It's not easy to find sponsors for the psychedelic room or the.
I remember at the time you and I were, we kind of brainstormed 3 rooms where we could get them sponsors immediately. I mean,
right.
Like immediately.
Right. Well, that's my point is now that this headline has come out and they're accusing Clubhouse of not getting sponsors for the creators. And my point is, well, I don't think that was really strongly the motive, because if the motive was to help them find sponsors, they would have chosen rooms that were easy to find sponsors for.
Yeah, that's right. And they're giving them a break, I think. They're just giving people a break.
Correct. They were supporting people who ordinarily they were the birds who might not have an easy time jumping out of the nest and flying. And Tech News was already up and flying. Justin was already up and flying. We were, once the announcement was made, we realized, they're not interested in supporting the ones that are clearly already up and working. They want to support ones that might not ever have a chance to get out the gate anyways. So once that realization was made, we said, it makes sense. But by the way, they gave them $15,000 each, all 30 of them, and iPhones if they asked for them, and technical and marketing support if they asked for it, and all these other things. And the point is, this journalist wrote this hit piece and asked a bunch of the creators who didn't get sponsorships, how do they feel about this? And if some of them expressed that they're, kind of upset that they didn't get a sponsor, and they feel like Clubhouse didn't live up to the potential, and now they're going over to other platforms where they can hopefully find sponsors. To which I say,
good luck.
Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly. But Clubhouse didn't owe you anything. They gave you $15,000, an iPhone, some support, and it's on you to find a sponsor. It ain't the platform's responsibility to find you a sponsor.
You got to hustle.
You got to hustle, right?
Right.
So here's the thing.
Find me a platform that will give you a sponsor. I host events. I get my sponsors. I do other things. Find me a podcasting network that gets you a sponsor. Find me any platform anywhere that gets you a sponsor. That just doesn't happen. You were cuckoo for thinking, you misunderstood the whole premise of this whole initiative. They weren't promising to find you sponsors. I remember the platform. I remember the campaign. And the campaign there was never a promise to get people sponsors and make them freaking Instagram celebrities or whatever they got this weird idea in their head.
The analogy there, I mean, like not analogy, but it's, the parallel thing is that, Tyler, if you you fund 10 very, very early seed rounds, for, 10,000 each, you give these 10, you give these 10 entrepreneurs a break. One of them, gets to the next round, hustles it, got some customers, gets it to the, next round. Some, either you lead the next round or somebody else leads the next round. Then 9 of them go to a newspaper and say, screwed up, my initial seed investor didn't get me the second round, right? I mean, you got to hustle.
They don't understand milestones and inflection points. It's just like it's not a meritocracy anymore. Everything's just give me, unfortunately. And it is what it is. We're working hard on this side over here.
So anyway,
yeah, I think it speaks a little bit to the culture of Western countries. Like in China, when they poll children want to be astronauts, scientists. Here, everybody wants to be a YouTuber, and the level of difficulty or the rarity of that kind of success, I think, is most people miss how difficult.
By the way,
that is. That hustle.
It's
even more difficult than
you bring up a great point, because ask my friend Lakeisha here on stage, who we live a few kilometers from each other here in Thailand. And there's a whole lot of Thais. I don't recall any Thais winning or being accepted into this program. Or if somebody from Romania, for example, or Eastern Europe or Southeast Asia, do you know how much $15,000 is in fucking Southeast Asia? That's a year's fucking salary. So I mean, forgive me for, support, backing. I just remember the details and the essence and the spirit of this whole initiative campaign, and it was all very well intended. It was a whole lot of generous, it was obvious. Obviously it was self-serving to a degree. They want more good content in Clubhouse, and that was honest. Now looking at it very clearly, that's really what it was about, was inspiring people to create more interesting content in Clubhouse. And I think maybe the mistake was giving people the impression that, as soon as it's clear you don't get a sponsor, you're stopping. You got 15 grand. Where's your show? I feel like you should have committed to doing a show at least once a week for a year to get 15 grand, or at least 6 months. You see what I'm saying? So we're doing this show twice a day, 6 hours a day, every day.
6 hours a day. And we love it. And we're not asking for a penny. We pay it forward. It's all
Tyler, your hourly rate is less than the minimum wage in the UK.
It's that give an inch, take a mile.
Yeah, except for my stock portfolio is doing quite well.
No, exactly. We're not talking about the stock portfolio.
So it's like Tyler, right? Like you and I, we're about to meet in a couple hours to have a talk, right?
Yeah.
I didn't say like, hey, Tyler, bro, let's meet up, bro. Like, give me an hour. And then if you're like, hey, dude, I'm a little busy, I go over to Twitter. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Tyler's so tight with his time, man. He doesn't care about me. It's like, no, man, I respect your time.
Well,
give an inch, take a mile.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry about
that.
No,
he made his point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really does come down to the hustle. And Tyler, you mentioning the Thai perspective, not only would 15,000 go far, but people hustle. And I know we talked about this earlier. I was talking with this Thai woman who came to this villa resort area that, they had these rock bottom prices, and so they're renting them for really, really cheap for monthly rental. So what she told me she's been doing? She's been talking with people who are maybe just traveling for the week. And then once she realized when they were checking out, she would go to the manager, and she's blocked out, meaning that she's fronted the cash for almost every villa within this particular resort. And then she, makes these posts. She's already arranged it with the management that she's making a profit by subleasing based on what she's already rented out. So, it does come down to the hustle. It comes down to the hustle.
Yeah. What part of the world is she from?
She's Thai. And yeah, I mean, some people, I think, learn it along the way, and then other people just don't get it.
So the lady who's doing that, the hustling lady, is Thai, yeah?
The hustling lady is Thai.
Yeah. Good on her.
I got a song for this hustle moment right here. So that's what you got to do. You got to hustle.
We couldn't quite hear the song, but I'm a little concerned because we had Vice, and now what was this one today? Verge and Business Insider's writing one now. All three.
Somebody's after them, right? I think there's a pattern here. There's somebody.
I'm just concerned that there's 3 hit pieces in a week on Clubhouse. It's kind of weird.
We see this in Bitcoin as well. Those seem to be coordinated waves of negative press. Whether they're all just copying each other, whether there's something else behind it, I don't really know. But I see it in a few different sectors. Happens to Tesla, is happening to Clubhouse, as you say, happens in Bitcoin. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether it's causality, common cause, or coincidence, but it's one of them.
Yeah. We should do an expose on the inner workings of negative PR, sabotage.
Well, negative news sells. I mean, it's always been the case, right?
Yeah, but Clubhouse isn't really a competitor to The Verge and Business Insider and what's the other one, Vice. I'm curious if there's a competitor that's whispering in the ears of these
behind them.
journalists.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
Could they be paid to do it?
Yeah, of course you can pay journalists to do stuff like that.
How about call in?
Huh?
Wait, I was thinking, doesn't Spotify have a new program where they can get anybody sponsors or get your video monetized, I should say, once you make a podcast? Isn't that like something Spotify does? And Anchor as well is like
Yes.
affiliated with Spotify in that regard as well. So it could be the green room thing, but that was just my quick thought.
I really don't think it's Spotify who's behind that. I mean, that's an interesting coincidence. There was a headline recently that Spotify is going to be able to put more ads directly into your podcast if you're a podcaster with Anchor, which is great. And conceivably, and for folks who don't know, Spotify has an ad network, right? They insert ads in between songs. That's an ad. People can pay to put their ad in between songs. And they can target based on, where you are geographically, your age as a user, all the typical ad network targeting stuff. And the point is they could also insert ads into a podcast. And now that they have their version of Clubhouse called Green Room, they could insert ads before you enter the room. So you click to enter the room, but before you enter the room, you listen to an ad, and the room creator gets that money. So having an ad network is a very powerful thing. And and they're always improving their ad network, of course, and they're adding it more to their podcast. But that doesn't really, I don't think that paints. I wouldn't make the leap to accuse them of running negative ads against Clubhouse. So.
But actually, this article brought me to one thing. I remember there are many good content creators. Of course, Tyler and don't really mind. But I think creators like the Lullaby Club, etc., they are actually not rich people, right? They're all like musicians and stuff like that. So they have been spending a lot of time on the app. And if based on what you say, those rooms that are already successful are not supported, I think that's kind of unfair for those people who actually invest a lot of time in it. Maybe that actually explains why many people are already off the app now. They're not really doing it anymore.
Hey, there's always TikTok.
Changing the topic, Tyler. Just wanted to let you know, guys, everyone. James Bond is back. It's on. The premiere is being viewed today at Royal Albert Hall.
Okay, so
I agree with Cheryl. Sorry, sorry to ignore your thing on James Bond. I'll come back to that. I just wanted to, Cheryl, I agree with you on. I think such hardworking people, some of these artists that are trying to make it on this platform, and they've got to, if you want to give somebody a break, those are the people that have been keeping this platform going. Some of the ethical, really smart, artists that are out there and singers and stuff, and I agree with Cheryl 100% there.
I'll add one other point that just came to mind, which is, and obviously self-serving in a sense, but I think a smart thing for a platform to do is, and YouTube did this, and I remember YouTube really benefited from this. YouTube, as soon as when Lonely Girl broke out and it was revealed that they were making like $1 million a year, oh boy, did a whole bunch, that headline that there's a YouTube creator making $1 million a year, that went viral, and then a whole bunch of people jumped in, and typical greed, just it attracted tons of creators into YouTube, and a lot of them tried to purposefully clone Lonely Girl 15, and then a whole bunch of people become YouTube creators because they hear that other people are making money in YouTube. So my point is, it might be smart for Clubhouse or any of the audio platforms to try and make one content creator very successful and monetarily, and then once it gets to a certain impressive amount, run with that headline and make the poster child story or effect of like, here's this creator is making a killing on Clubhouse. It'd be a fantastic thing for them to do. You'd get a ton of people flooding in and making rooms. Yeah.
I think I know this, creator by the name of Tyler. Maybe that guy's a good candidate.
Well, here's the weird thing. As I mentioned before, but Cal knows because Cal and I have talked about this months ago. The monthly events that I do, which you can see in my bio, which all the Swedes in the room know, any Scandinavian in the room knows. My sponsors of my monthly events are Visa and Mercedes-Benz and the biggest banks in Scandinavia and the biggest law firms and et cetera, et cetera. And I've not ever once asked them if they want to sponsor this room, and I very easily could. And EY as well, Ernst & Young, has been a sponsor of mine and these have been my sponsors for years and years and years. And I can easily ask them to sponsor this, and I bet you half of them would. And I could probably, and by the way, I bet you, just for people who want to do napkin math, I bet you I could get them each to commit to $1,000 a month. They would jump on that, and I bet you I could get 5 immediately. So I could make $5,000 a month immediately, and that's, I don't know, what's that, $60,000 or $70,000 a year. And then if Clubhouse were to try and bring in sponsors on top of that, we could get 4 or 5 more, and they could probably get for far more than $1,000 a month. We could get to 100,000 very easily and do the $100,000 headline real easy, like super crazy easy. So that headline is very easily to do. The Clubhousers making 100,000 a year on Clubhouse, whatever. We could do that. That's no problem. That's a piece of cake.
Great, let's do it. We could win cash prizes, Tyler, on Jeopardy.
We serve like when you look at tricks, I think we see about 6,000 uniques a day, a show, for about 20 to 25 minutes per show. That's 120,000 minutes of engagement, attention, and whatever that Andy likes to say, like human engagement, attention, and whatever. Like that's a big deal, and like this is so unique, and it's a snap of a finger to monetize it, and that's the thing, is you're not
Gotta
doing
pull back to get the big sale.
Yeah, podcasts have this much engagement on Spotify are in the top podcasts in the world at the
Well,
present
this is a
moment. So
podcast, right, Tyler? Don't you publish
yeah,
this as a podcast?
Podcast to me has a slightly different connotation. Because I'm not doing, hey, welcome everybody, and here's today's episode, and we're going to talk about this. Yeah,
no,
it's kind of a weird
but
format.
It's being streamed, right? Like the terminology, especially when you're talking to producers and like radio producers and stuff, like everything is a podcast right now, isn't it? So anything that can be streamed audibly is a podcast in like that terminology. When producers in TV and radio talk about tech, they call it a podcast when it's just an audio. So yeah, but to me, I would call it a show. But everything is a show if you decide to do it consistently.
Yeah. By the way,
best description for the format is, this is the social morning drive. Like not all of us, a lot of us, like if we're commuting, we're yelling at the radio like, oh, you're missing this part, or yeah, I agree with you. This lets us do it in real time.
Right. But so
talk radio.
I mentioned, it's talk radio, but I mentioned when we were reading that article the first time, I had a call right before this room opened, like an hour before this room opened today. So about 4 hours ago, I had one of the biggest companies in the world said, can we work together? And we talked for an hour, and it was just a very, I'm in no hurry to try and close any deal like that or whatever. So I'm just like, well, let's talk. Da, 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 da. And we talked about all kinds of shit, but, easy peasy. Anyway, I just wanted Cal to come in and verify that the whole point about, and he said, as always, we're always on the same page. Is like, you got to hustle. And this weird that somebody would get help from a platform and then participate in a hit piece like that. So anyway,
it also makes it a little less. You become less investable when you're like that, right?
Sure.
And I've seen that with startup founders, and you've seen that, Tyler, right? Yeah. Like it's just when you start to be like that, and you're less grateful about everything, you're less investable. It's just you will not get the big investments, long term.
By the way, Cal, you weren't the only one to make the analogy that you did about startups, and you get investment, but it's up to you to make the company work or not. You get help and a little financial support, but no VC is going to like bring you clients. I mean, this once in a while that happens, but no one ever.
You got to work to the inflection points. It's not a conveyor belt that comes at you. You need to keep moving.
Yeah. So here's a crazy story that's just come in here. an Ethereum developer named Virgil Griffith pleads guilty to conspiracy charges in North Korean sanctions case. Griffith was charged with violating sanctions law by giving a cryptocurrency and blockchain presentation in North Korea at a conference in 2019. The Ethereum developer charged with violating U.S. sanctions laws, because there's U.S. sanctions against North Korea. He has pleaded guilty, which how can you not? They caught you in North Korea giving a conference. In an agreement with federal prosecutors, Griffith pleaded guilty to one charge of conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act on Monday in a New York courthouse. The plea deal could see him serve between 63 and 78 months in prison. He will be sentenced in January 2022. The developer was arrested in November 2019 after giving a presentation on cryptocurrency and blockchain at the North Korean Cryptocurrency Conference in April that year. He also agreed to a forfeiture clause, though details were not released at press time. A 2019 charging document calls for the forfeiture of any proceeds Griffith earned from giving the presentation. So don't be giving presentations in North Korea.
But that has a lot to do with the fact that North Korea themselves are engaged in a lot of phishing scams and other schemes involving cryptocurrencies that circumvent international sanctions. So I think, being part of that game kind of gets you in trouble.
Well, let's unpack this a little further. Countries who are under very tight sanctions, like North Korea and Iran, and to a lesser extent Russia at the moment, and Cuba, very, very notably. Iran, when sanctions kicked in, the first thing they did was fire up the Bitcoin miners and try to get on Bitcoin so that they could continue to buy products and services internationally with Bitcoin. And the state said to everybody, everyone please mine Bitcoin, we will buy them from you. And because they needed some alternative to US dollars to pay for products and services. Because countries that were selling stuff, like Iran, needs all kinds of stuff. They need a lot of imports. People who want to sell to Iran are not interested in taking Iran's currency. They want US dollars for international trade, which they are not allowed to participate in because they have the US is banning them on these and that's why Russia, by the way, is insisting on selling their oil in euros when they sell natural gas to Europe. So to circumvent these, what do we call these sanctions? These states look at this stuff, and this is why Cuba is so interested in Bitcoin, and they have a very serious interest to be interested in Bitcoin because of the long-standing blockade or sanctions on Cuba. So it's a very interesting point, and that's why North Korea has a very real interest in this, and that's why they had a Bitcoin crypto conference, because they're interested in having an economy, and to have an economy, to have an economy when the U.S. has sanctions on you means you cannot do any trade with anybody in dollars, which is the international currency of trade. So hence their very sincere interest in adopting and using, cryptocurrency. So yeah, you can't go over there and teach them how to do that. You're going to go to jail, which this guy is going to do.
Any idea how that worked out for Iran? Because I hear their economy is pretty much in the toilets from sanctions. So
yeah,
I'm not sure it made much of an overall effect.
Right. Yeah. And they apparently mined so much Bitcoin that it, with coal-powered plants, that it was affecting the breathability of the air in Tehran.
But it is still impressive that such countries are still able to be so competitive. Specifically, Iran is still very competitive in some DoD applications like radar and genetic engineering, which is surprising given the kind of isolation that they experience. Yeah, so it's a testament to how intelligent the people are. In fact, that echoes what Eric Schmidt said once.
There's no shortage. Make no mistake. There's no shortage of intelligent Iranians. I mean, they would have a nuclear bomb if the Israelis hadn't killed their scientists repeatedly. Every time they get close, whoever's leading the nuclear bomb project magically gets assassinated. So yeah, there's no shortage of super smart Iranians. I mean, they would be a nuclear power if Israel didn't perceive it as an existential threat. them attaining that capability.
Yeah, and I just meant that as to distinguish between the Iranian government and the Iranian people, because sometimes when we say the Russians, we actually mean the Russian government. So that's all that I meant with that.
Yeah.
By the way, are you done with this one, Tyler? Because there's something that happened today that may be relevant.
Go ahead.
I don't know if there'll be any breaking news later on or tomorrow, but Laura Edelson, who works
NYU,
at NYU in the research group, she testified today at the Disinformation Black Box hearing in the House of the Science and Technology Committee. And she basically told her story of what her difficulty is. I can play a snippet if you guys want. If not, we'll wait for the stories to come out if it's covered.
Go ahead. Yeah, and for those who don't know, this is the NYU researcher who was doing the research into the political news on Facebook and political campaign financing and all the political ads and all that. And then Facebook shut her project down. And very, very interesting.
I've moved it forward a little bit. Just tell me when you shout when you want me to stop it. But it's a total of 154 minutes. But I'm in at 40 seconds. Okay.
I don't think Facebook chooses to promote. It has not sat down and made the choice. We will promote misinformation. What it has done is it has chosen to promote the most engaging content. And when its own internal research told it that the most engaging content was misinformation, it was the most polarizing content, it was hateful content, it didn't do anything about it. It was a conscious choice not to take steps that would increase the quality of its information ecosystem, but would also decrease engagement. And the reason why is ads. Ads are Facebook's business. And, one of the reasons that finding that there are many, many, many ads and advertisers who slip through the cracks is that Facebook isn't willing to make its ad platform more secure, more trustworthy, because that would make its ad experience worse and cost it money.
So let me just stop you because I've got here or in.
That's it.
Okay. There you go. Thank you for that.
If people are interested, I could. I'll put the link on Twitter and CC you.
Okay.
Of the hearing.
Okay. So other headlines to jump into. Professor Ossoff sends in a hot one from South China Morning Post. Could 1 million small asteroids be on a collision course with Earth? Chinese researchers say hundreds of thousands of space objects may be heading our way over the next century.
Well, great news.
Yeah. Just, trying to keep things upbeat here. So David Crace sends in this one that the average ransomware payment fell by 38% in Q2 2021. And what else do we got here? We got to run through these. India buys 4 Israeli Heron drones, these kind of big airplane drones, to upgrade them with missiles. And Taiwan as well, upgrading technologically. And John Biggs, who used to be a journalist for TechCrunch and Gizmodo in the New York Times, took to Twitter to say that your Facebook and Clubhouse accounts are now on the dark web. And this is old news in one sense. The Clubhouse data was scraped. It wasn't really stolen. I mean, it's publicly available data, essentially. But now they're marrying it to Facebook accounts. So you get additional juicy data by connecting both data sources when you get those matches and everything. Is kind of... Anyway, the guy's trying to sell it on the dark web, but he hasn't been able to find a buyer yet for $100,000 for 3 million accounts. Anyway, Norway joins the space race. Somebody sent me this one. Yeah, they're joining all the billionaires who are trying to rush into space. And then Evan sends in this one that researchers develop a new robot that can efficiently navigate sidewalks in urban environments. And it looks like The robot dog, yet another robot dog. My God, there's a whole bunch of these things now. We're going to need a robot dog park before the end of this. And Evan also sends in this one that space tech to give arid countries food supplies is the headline. Nanoracks and the UAE partner up to adapt ag tech originally envisioned for space travel for use in inhospitable regions on Earth. So the idea is, if you can grow food in a space station or on the moon, certainly you should be able to grow it in Dubai. And that's the idea, is that this company called Nanoracks that came up with this creative way of growing food inside of the space station is partnering with the United Arab Emirates to partner to grow food in the United Arab Emirates, because, hey, if your technology works on the moon, it should probably work in the United Arab Emirates. So Ken sends in this one from the Wall Street Journal that Affirm, which is a buy now, pay later based in America, which recently had a massive announcement that they've partnered with Amazon, is scrutinizing more loans as its buy now, pay later installment plans surge in popularity. So it's kind of a puff piece there for Affirm. And David Crace sends in this one that luxury consumer brand advertising on LinkedIn is booming, much larger than expected. LinkedIn now derives up to 15% of its ad sales from the likes of Mercedes, Cartier, Louis Vuitton, and other consumer brands. That's interesting. And Ken sends in this one that Google's pushes to overturn the EU's $5 billion antitrust decision on Android to be continued. And we covered that one and that one and that one. And the China energy crunch triggers alarms. Please for more coal, according to Reuters. Governor of Jilan province urges more coal imports. Fears as power cuts hit traffic lights, 3G networks, and factories. We covered this yesterday, but it's if you think the UK has got a problem with fuel, China's got a huge problem with power that seems to be growing out of control. 13 million people have been affected.
Cal posted an article, or we know that the shipping rates are just going parabolic eastbound, but westbound is like flat. It's actually like really cheap. I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for countries like the US and Canada to export more coal to China, but China's not going to want to take United States coal. So it really leaves places like Canada and maybe like, the lower, South America. I don't know who produces coal. I'm not an expert, but I'm knowing that the freight costs would probably be a big deal because, they got to make stuff in China and the shipping costs have gone up 7 times. That's untenable.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some interesting economic, I don't want to say warfare, but like economic meddling.
Well, think about California. Our ports are just jammed. There's like 50 container ships just sitting out in front of Long Beach right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that in Ken, I don't know if Ken's here, but in the oil world they call that contango, I think, where they leave containers out in the ocean until the price gets amenable to get them off the coast. Now you just have no one to offload it, so you have these really expensive containers that you're dying to get across the ocean. And now once they get there, no one's processing them. So, companies are going to be scrambling.
Well, and on this side of the ocean, it's obviously just the opposite, where, it's not only China, it's all across Asia and the Pacific Rim where, places like Thailand, where Tyler and I happen to be, can't get our, food exports, over to the other side of the ocean because we don't have the shipping containers on this side. So you're absolutely right.
And then crypto exchanges face extinction in South Korea. Well, first China, now Korea. China banned all crypto exchanges. Now Korea is banning all crypto exchanges. And seaweed to cow feed. Why is Sweden building the world's largest algae factory? Yes, to give cows to reduce methane and things like that. Sweet. That's a very
and the land for cereal crops, right? I mean, the UK, it's still like 60-70% of all the aggregation is done for cereal crops for cattle. Like it's crazy.
Chris, on your point about container ships, Evan just found this article from Daily Mail UK. Costco rents its own container ships to avoid global shipping crisis.
Yeah, I mean,
Toilet paper crisis.
What Lakeisha said makes just tremendous sense too. I didn't factor that in. Is you don't have empty containers coming back from America, right? So you have stuff basically stuck at port in China, or I should say in Asia. Sorry.
And then Evan found this one also from Daily Mail that Tesla is using YouTubers to test self-driving cars, not trained drivers. Outrage!
What could go wrong?
Outrage as Tesla recruits YouTubers to test its self-driving technologies on public streets rather than trained safety drivers. Safety experts are outraged. Tesla let would-be influencers test version 10.1 of its full self-driving AI. One YouTuber lurched toward pedestrians. And Cardano invests in DeFi, NFT, and blockchain education. And Google appeals its EU ruling. We covered that. And Facebook denies internal research shows Instagram is toxic for teens. We covered that. SpaceX's Starlink could become a new way to navigate the world. Starlink is not as accurate as GPS currently, but it is more difficult to breach and could have even stronger signal strength in the future. That's interesting. And I think that brings us to the top of the hour. Atari founder is launching augmented reality NFTs on Ethereum. That would be Nolan Bushnell, who's a real kind of incredibly influential figure in the history of technology, where he hired Steve Jobs to work at Atari. Anyway, so what do we have two rooms going on now, do we, Cheryl? The MedTech room and the Bitcoin room, right?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome.
They already started, so we can just choose, take our pick, and join any one of them. Thank you.
Okay, so we will do that. And so click on the title of the room and follow the clubs. And hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, Tyler.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Good